Chapter 608. Cherry Blossom Gauze's hands behind her back were charred. Although Huiyazi's yang fire couldn't be compared to Li Daochong's yang lightning, it was still the yang spiritual true fire. Thus, the damage it caused to Cherry Blossom Gauze could not be underestimated. However, Huiyazi couldn't fight anymore, so this small injury was nothing. In the blink of an eye, 2 of Patriarch Tianfeng's 3 disciples had been defeated. The demon cultivators in the banquet hall opened their mouths wide in disbelief. When did such a devil appear in the black prison? The demon sect, the instigator of this incident, had been watching from the sidelines, as if this matter had nothing to do with them. However, when Cherry Blossom Gauze easily killed Tiangongzi and Huiyazi, the fiendish python's expression changed slightly. Qi Kuang was also surprised. When did the Thousand Yin sect have such a powerful female cultivator? He had no idea. Qi Kuang, why didn't I know that there was such a person in the Thousand Yin sect? The fiendish python asked. My lord, I've been in the black prison for so many years, but I've never seen this woman before, Qi Kuang replied. That's strange. Could it be that the black prison has been assimilated by the netherworld aura and ghosts can be seen at any time? How can such a powerful cultivator appear so casually? The fiendish python looked at Cherry Blossom Gauze with a hint of doubt in his eyes. He felt that this female cultivator had a familiar aura, but it wasn't very stable. My lord, will this woman's appearance disrupt our plan? Qi Kuang asked worriedly. No one can disrupt our plan tonight. As long as the mini-sky 9 Serenities formation is completed, Patriarch Tianfeng will die. This woman has killed all the people around Patriarch Tianfeng. Won't it save us a lot of trouble? The fiendish python's eyes flashed coldly. My lord is right, Qi Kuang agreed. In the Earl's house, Wu Chanda tried his best to hide the shock in his heart. Lord Nightsoul, is the person you mentioned not here yet? Wu Chanda asked carefully. We've arrived, Nightsoul said faintly. The corner of Wu Chanda's eyes twitched. They had already arrived? He did not sense any fluctuations in his surroundings at all. Wu Chanda considered his perception to be top-notch among cultivators of the same level. During this time, Wu Chanda's spiritual force enveloped the surroundings, not even letting off a mosquito. However, he did not sense any fluctuations. Wu Chanda looked around but didn't find an extra person anywhere. Lord Nightsoul, when shall we take action? Wu Chanda asked. There's no hurry. How can we interrupt such an interesting battle? That female cultivator is really powerful. If she could join the Dark Knight, she would become a 4-star assassin in no time, or even higher. What a pity. Nightsoul cherished talent, but unfortunately, it wasn't the time to recruit talents tonight. Wu Chanda had been in contact with Nightsoul for a long time, but this was the first time he had heard the core member of Nightsoul praise a cultivator so openly. He had to admit that the female cultivator was indeed powerful. Wu Chanda knew that he might not be her opponent. At best, Wu Chanda was on par with Huiyazi. Li Daochong sat behind the table and looked at the field quietly. Naturally, he was not worried about Cherry Blossom Gauze, but there were 3 people in the field that he couldn't see through. One was Patriarch Tianfeng, another was the gloomy-looking man in black from the demon sect, and the last was the thin middle-aged man from the Earl's house whose aura was almost undetectable. If one didn't look at him, it was as if he didn't exist. Huiyazi had been defeated, and Feng Nanzi was the only disciple left of Patriarch Tianfeng. Of course, he was also the strongest one, and his temperament was different from Tiangongzi and Huiyazi. At this moment, Feng Nanzi stood there and watched indifferently as Huiyazi was knocked unconscious. His face was expressionless, as if he was just watching a stranger being beaten up. Cherry Blossom Gauze did not continue to attack the unconscious Huiyazi. She stood in the field and looked at Feng Nanzi quietly. Your Excellency, are you not going to fight? Cherry Blossom Gauze saw that Feng Nanzi was indifferent and couldn't help but ask. Feng Nanzi acted as if he didn't hear her. He only moved his hand and a blood-red light whizzed out. He actually directly attacked. Cherry Blossom Gauze's beautiful eyes widened. A strong pressure made her back go cold. She instantly took out a flying sword. This was a spiritual weapon that Li Daochong gave Cherry Blossom Gauze. If she used her own underworld treasure, it would immediately be noticed. This flying sword was not a spiritual treasure. It was once the natal magic treasure of a demonic cultivator. Otherwise, Cherry Blossom Gauze wouldn't be able to use it. Dang ka! Cherry Blossom Gauze's black flying sword collided with Feng Nanzi's red light and instantly broke. The two magic treasures were not on the same level. They were broken in an instant. The blood-red light didn't stop and continued to shoot towards Cherry Blossom Gauze. Li Daochong's eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to attack, Cherry Blossom Gauze's figure flashed and narrowly avoided the blood-red light. Swish! A few strands of hair fell from Cherry Blossom Gauze's face. Feng Nanzi raised his hand and the blood-red light instantly stopped. Otherwise, it would have pierced a big hole in the Black Prison Palace. At this moment, everyone saw that the blood-red light was a ferocious blood-red blade. It was Feng Nanzi's natal magic treasure, the Sky Devourer blade. The blade was over 2 meters long and about a foot wide. The hilt was about 10 inches long. The entire shape was simple and clear. At first glance, it looked like a blood-red strip with a narrow back and a wide front. The entire blade was like a solidified blood clot, emitting a strong bloodthirsty aura. Cherry Blossom Gauze seemed to be expressionless, but she was a little afraid. She couldn't use her underworld treasure and her strength was greatly reduced. Feng Nanzi was completely different from Tiangongzi and Huiyazi. When experts fought, they would know whether they were strong or not. Cherry Blossom Gauze was very clear about her own strength. Currently, she was probably at the level of a late-stage void refinement realm cultivator. She was basically invincible among her peers unless she encountered a freak like Li Daochong. Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't use her underworld king sword in front of everyone. This female cultivator is very strong. Unfortunately, she doesn't have a good magic treasure. She will be at a disadvantage if she goes against Feng Nanzi. An old man at the table shook his head and said. Feng Nanzi clenched his fist, and the Sky Devourer blade appeared in his hand, as if it had teleported. Without saying a word, Feng Nanzi instantly moved and slashed the Sky Devourer blade horizontally. Clang! A blood-red light flashed. With a buzzing sound, the blade chi was like a wave. Cherry Blossom Gauze hurriedly dodged. Although she managed to dodge, her arm was still cut by the blade chi. Fortunately, she was wearing a Dharma robe and was not injured. However, before Cherry Blossom Gauze could land on the ground, Feng Nanzi had already appeared in front of her. His face was still expressionless like a zombie as he slashed his blade down. It's over. That female cultivator is dead for sure. Feng Nanzi has already restrained himself. The blade chi is condensed on the blade and he didn't release it. Otherwise, the entire Black Prison Imperial Palace would be in trouble. Tisk tsk. This battle is a good example of the importance of magic treasures. If that female cultivator had a good magic treasure in her hand, she might be able to fight for a while. Unfortunately, she doesn't. Her strength is not as good as Feng Nanzi's, so it's reasonable that she would be killed instantly. Many demonic cultivators expressed their opinions. Young master, please save Sister Ing Sha. Seeing that Cherry Blossom Gauze could not hold on any longer, Yin Ping hurriedly said. Have some faith in your sister Ing Sha. She will be fine. Li Daochong narrowed his eyes and said. Whoosh! The blade flashed past. In a trance, it seemed as if the Cherry Blossom Gauze had been cut in half. However, Feng Nanzi's face was filled with surprise. It was just an illusion. Cherry Blossom Gauze's real body appeared behind Feng Nanzi. A pair of white gloves had appeared on her hands. It was the ghostly demon spider's silk gloves. However, this pair of gloves was enchanted with extreme Yin crystals, so the ghostly chi would not be released. This was the only nether treasure that Cherry Blossom Gauze could use. The palm was about to hit the target, but Feng Nanzi's reaction speed was much faster than Cherry Blossom Gauze had expected. Feng Nanzi did not even turn around. The Sky Devourer blade in his hand pierced towards the back. Cherry Blossom Gauze's expression showed a hint of determination. She knew that she could not fight Feng Nanzi for a long time. She had to end the battle as soon as possible. Although Feng Nanzi was much calmer than Tian Gangzi and Huiyazi, he still had a strong sense of superiority. He did not put Cherry Blossom Gauze in his eyes. From the beginning until now, Feng Nanzi had not used any divine ability. He had only exchanged blows with Cherry Blossom Gauze. This was Cherry Blossom Gauze's only chance to defeat Feng Nanzi. Once the latter used his divine ability, Cherry Blossom Gauze would not be able to block it if she could not use the King Hades sword. When Feng Nanzi did not even look behind him and slashed with his blade, Cherry Blossom Gauze knew that her chance had come. Ka! Cherry Blossom Gauze's gloved hand grabbed the blade. This action caused a burst of exclamations from the table. Is this woman crazy? She actually used her hand to grab the immortal spiritual treasure. Someone exclaimed in disbelief. Feng Nanzi's expressionless face showed a hint of doubt for the first time. He did not expect his opponent to use her hand to grab the Sky Devourer blade. She did not want her hand anymore? Cherry Blossom Gauze struck out with her palm at the same time that she grabbed the blade. This palm did not use the dark art, nor did it carry any dark chi. However, this palm gathered all of the Cherry Blossom Gauze's dark chi into one point. Feng Nanzi instantly felt that something was wrong. The spirit chi around him exploded and his entire body emitted a blood-red glow. Cherry Blossom Gauze's beautiful eyes revealed a hint of a smile. You want to use your divine ability now? It was too late. Bang! Cherry Blossom Gauze's palm struck Feng Nanzi's back. Pooh! Feng Nanzi was not sent flying. He only staggered a few steps forward and spat out a mouthful of blood. Cherry Blossom Gauze's palm did not seem to have used much strength. From the outside, it looked soft and powerless. However, Feng Nanzi only felt that the spirit chi in his body was violently stirred by an invisible rod. His primordial spirit was stirred up in his body. His organs were severely damaged and several of his spirit bones were broken. Only Feng Nanzi himself knew how terrifying this palm was. All of the power was released in his body. There was not a trace of it being released. Furthermore, Feng Nanzi did not feel a trace of spirit chi. This palm was pure strength. However, Feng Nanzi did not counterattack. The moment he was hit, the Sky Devourer blade suddenly twisted. Cherry Blossom Gauze's hand that was holding the blade was twisted away. The white glove was shattered. Poochie! The Sky Devourer blade ruthlessly pierced into Cherry Blossom Gauze's lower abdomen. Li Daocheng's hands tightened. Cherry Blossom Gauze's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. Young master, I'm fine. I won't die. Li Daocheng nodded slightly. Cherry Blossom Gauze's chi did not weaken. However, the Sky Devourer blade was a spirit treasure. It was impossible to say that it did not cause any damage when it pierced through Cherry Blossom Gauze's body. Fortunately, Cherry Blossom Gauze had benefited a lot from her dual cultivation with Li Daocheng. Her body's toughness was much stronger than before. The Sky Devourer blade did not stay in Cherry Blossom Gauze's body. When Feng Nanzi leaned forward, he took the Sky Devourer blade with him. Cherry Blossom Gauze covered her lower abdomen. She quickly tore a white bandage from her underwear and wrapped the wound. Then, she took out a black pill and swallowed it. This was the Hades healing pill that Cherry Blossom Gauze carried with her. Gotcha! Feng Nanzi held the Sky Devourer blade with one hand and pressed it against the ground. He knelt on one knee and covered his chest with the other hand. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. He looked at the ground in front of him. He wanted to speak, but no sound came out. He was slightly better than Huiyazi, but he did not faint. At this time, none of the thousands of cultivators at the table made a sound. The large banquet hall was silent. All the demonic cultivators looked at Cherry Blossom Gauze as if they were looking at a monster. Only Murong Zhu's eyes flashed with a strange light. She vaguely felt that she had seen this female cultivator somewhere before, but her appearance was not right. However, this female cultivator gave Murong Zhu the same feeling as the female cultivator who appeared in the Snowfield bar more than 10 days ago. Could it be her? Murong Zhu's eyebrows moved slightly. Her eyes inadvertently swept across the table. If it was really her, that young man should also be here. However, Murong Zhu looked back and forth a few times, but she did not see the young man who appeared in the Snowfield bar more than 10 days ago. Feng Nanzi actually lost? How is this possible? Who is she? Is the black prison going to change? Change my ass. No matter how strong Feng Nanzi is, can he be stronger than old ancestor Tianfeng? No matter how fierce that woman is, can she win against old ancestor Tianfeng? After a few seconds, the table was filled with discussions. Senior Tianfeng, is this junior considered to have won? Cherry Blossom Gauze turned to look at old ancestor Tianfeng and asked. Old ancestor Tianfeng's face was pale. He gritted his teeth in hatred, but he could not do anything. Today, his 4 disciples had completely thrown away his old face. Yes. Old ancestor Tianfeng unwillingly spat out a word. He no longer looked at Cherry Blossom Gauze and glared at his 4 disciples. From tomorrow onwards, the 4 of you will return to Tianfeng Mountain and cultivate for 10 years. During this period, you are not allowed to take half a step out of Tianfeng Mountain. If there is any violation, you will be expelled from the sect. Li Daochong had a whole new level of respect for old ancestor Tianfeng for being able to swallow his anger. This old man was not a bad person. Regardless of whether it was because of his scruples or some other reason, at least he had some morals. After old ancestor Tianfeng finished speaking, he immediately removed the protective barrier and was about to return all the tables to their original positions. Suddenly, a wave of ridiculously strong death aura surged from all directions. In just a blink of an eye, the entire Black Prison Palace seemed to have fallen into the abyss of Hades. What's going on? Old ancestor Tianfeng's voice was like a wave. Old ancestor, this is bad. Old ancestor, this is bad. Black Prison Palace is surrounded. Black Prison Palace is surrounded. Just as old ancestor Tianfeng's voice fell, a servant ran in from outside in a fluster and said incoherently, What surrounded? Speak properly. Old ancestor Tianfeng frowned. Black Prison Palace is isolated by some array and has lost contact with the outside world. That servant calmed himself down and said, Old ancestor Tianfeng's face was cold as he released his spiritual sense. His figure flashed for a moment and returned in an instant. Old ancestor Tianfeng looked coldly at Qian Yueling. Your 1000 gate is indeed colluding with the Hades. What's with the nether array outside? Qian Yueling was dumbfounded. What nether array? How would she know? At this moment, old ancestor Tianfeng's lungs were about to explode. There was actually someone who dared to have designs on his Black Prison Palace in front of him. Just as old ancestor Tianfeng was speaking, 3 waves of terrifying demonic aura that should not exist in the Black Prison rushed over. Swish! A huge blade flew in from outside the banquet hall and headed straight for old ancestor Tianfeng. Old ancestor Tianfeng grabbed out with his hand. Instantly, a gigantic hand appeared and blocked the gigantic saber. Immediately after, a chain shot out and headed straight for old ancestor Tianfeng's waist. The chain carried dense demonic aura that was close to the Devil General realm. Old ancestor Tianfeng's eyes shot out a ray of light. With a wave of his sleeve, more than 10 flying swords whizzed out. Dang dang dang, the flying swords collided with the chain and more than 10 crisp sounds could be heard. A blade and a chain. 2 waves of demonic aura were entangled with old ancestor Tian Feng. The cultivators sitting at old ancestor Tian Feng's table were all sent flying. This group of void refinement realm cultivators were caught off guard and almost got hit. Among old ancestor Tian Feng's 4 disciples, other than Huiyazi, who was still unconscious, the other 3 could only watch and were powerless to help. Just as old ancestor Tian Feng was concentrating on defending against the 2 waves of demonic aura, a phantom silently appeared behind him. Black Lotus, an assassin of the Hades. Sneak attacks were her innate instinct. A dark bone dagger swept across the void and pierced towards old ancestor Tian Feng's waist. Baidu Searchdong 81 Chinese Networko. No advertising message. Chapter 609. You want to sneak an attack on me? Dream on. Old ancestor Tian Feng roared as the aura on his body exploded. A mountain phantom appeared behind old ancestor Tian Feng as though it had materialized. Before Black Lotus could even stab the dagger in his hand, he was sent flying by the mountain phantom. He pierced through the entire Black Hell Imperial Palace and flew for a few kilometers before crashing into the spatial array of the Lesser Sky 9 Serenities formation. As a demon of the Hades, Black Lotus's devil body had already reached large success. Although he had not reached the level of a devil general, he was still considered an expert among the demons. But this time, Black Lotus still spat out a mouthful of black blood and suffered some internal injuries. In the end, Black Lotus was just an ordinary demon of the Hades. He was not strong enough in front of a Unity stage cultivator. Ordinary demons were comparable to void refinement stage cultivators. The most powerful ones were at the peak of the void refinement stage. Above that were the devil generals. Of course, Black Lotus's combat strength was not damaged. He only suffered some minor internal injuries. Black Lotus wiped the corner of his mouth, and his figure flashed back to the banquet hall of the Black Hell Imperial Palace. The 2 demons, the giant man and Feilian, were still in a deadlock with old ancestor Tian Feng. It was obvious that the 2 of them were at a disadvantage. How dare you, demon of the Hades, behave so atrociously in my territory? You must be tired of living. Since you are here, don't leave. Old ancestor Tian Feng was already filled with anger. His 4 disciples had been defeated by a female cultivator that he had never seen before. Not only that, but a few demons actually appeared in the Black Hell Imperial Palace and secretly set up a super dark array to isolate the space. Old ancestor Tian Feng's anger could not be suppressed. At the Unity stage, a cultivator would have more than 1 natal magic treasure. There were even more non-natal magic treasures. Old ancestor Tian Feng had a total of 3 natal magic treasures. One of them was the returning peak flying sword. There were a total of 19 of them. The second was the Tian Feng mountain seal. This was old ancestor Tian Feng's strongest natal magic treasure. It looked like a mountain seal. The third was the sky wasp sting. It was an extremely sinister hidden weapon. It was old ancestor Tian Feng's trump card to protect his life or deal a fatal blow. However, the sky wasp stinger could not be used at any time. Normally, it would be kept within old ancestor Tian Feng's primordial spirit. In fact, the sky wasp stinger was fused with old ancestor Tian Feng's primordial spirit. If it was used, it would be similar to a bee sting. Of course, old ancestor Tian Feng wouldn't die after being stung like a bee. However, old ancestor Tian Feng's vitality would be damaged, and it would take several years for him to recover. As such, Patriarch Tian Feng wouldn't use the Heavenly Peak Thrust unless he had no other choice. Almost all body integration cultivators had life-saving measures like Patriarch Tian Feng's, be it through abilities, treasures, or secret technique. It was already very difficult to kill a Yuanian cultivator, let alone a body integration cultivator. The 19 flying swords that ancestor Tian Feng took out were none other than Feng Hui's flying sword. Fei Lian and the giant man were able to unleash their full strength with the help of the Lesser Sky 9 Serenities formation, and they did not have to worry about triggering the 9 heavens primordial lightning. Even so, the two devils were still insignificant in front of a body integration cultivator like Patriarch Tian Feng. Although Patriarch Tian Feng had the upper hand, he was unable to gain an overwhelming advantage. Under the cover of the Lesser Sky 9 Serenities formation, the death chi became denser and denser. Patriarch Tian Feng's strength was suppressed, and he was unable to unleash his full strength. Patriarch Tian Feng used the Heavenly Peak Mountain Seal to send the other devil flying. He originally thought that it would be effective and cause the other party to lose part of their combat power. However, the moment the devil was sent flying, it instantly returned and launched another attack at Patriarch Tian Feng. All the cultivators present were a little confused at first. They never thought that a devil from the Hades would appear in Patriarch Tian Feng's Black Prison Imperial Palace. After Patriarch Tian Feng exchanged a few moves with the three devils, some of the cultivators finally regained their senses. It's the devils. Everyone, let's kill them together. If Patriarch Tian Feng is defeated, none of us will be able to survive. Someone shouted loudly. His words immediately made the cultivators regain their senses. A few Void Refinement Realm Devil cultivators who were not weak took the lead and attacked the three devils. However, just as they were about to attack, a deafening sound rang out. A black thunderbolt struck down from above. More than 10 cultivators were instantly blasted into pieces by the black thunderbolt. Whoever dares to move will die. A gloomy voice said ruthlessly. The one who spoke was the devil python who was standing beside Qi Kuang. The might of the black thunderbolt sent chills down the spines of all the cultivators present. None of them dared to move. All the cultivators stood at their original positions while trembling in fear. They looked at Qi Kuang with puzzled eyes. Qi Kuang no longer concealed his intentions. He grinned and said, "As long as you guys stay here obediently, nothing will happen to you. If you want to lend a helping hand, please feel free to do so. However, before you act, it's best to consider whether you can withstand the Black Thunderbolt. Qi Kuang, you're the one who defected to the Hades." A veteran devil cultivator on the Black Prison Imperial Palace said in shock. Qi Kuang smiled sinisterly. "Defected? How can you say that? We are walking on the ghost path and cultivating the devil technique. We are originally part of the Hades. How can you say that we defected? We're a family after all." "Shameless!" that old devil cultivator said angrily. Whoosh! A ray of black light shot out and instantly penetrated the old devil cultivator's glabella. The old man glared at Qi Kuang with his old eyes. The devil Qi quickly engulfed him. The one who attacked was not Qi Kuang but the devil python. Although Qi Kuang was strong, he did not have the ability to kill a Void Refinement Realm Devil Cultivator. A Void Refinement Realm Devil Cultivator was easily killed before he could even struggle. The devil python hooked its hand and the black light that shot into the old man's glabella flew out and fell into the devil python's palm. The devil python swallowed the black light without looking at it and then licked its lips in satisfaction. "I haven't eaten such a pure human soul for a long time. The human soul of a devil cultivator seems to be more delicious than that of a spirit cultivator," the devil python said with a look of enjoyment. When the other cultivators around saw this scene, they suddenly realized that the devil of the Hades was still the devil of the Hades after all. They were the ones who ate human souls. No matter if it was a devil cultivator or a ghost cultivator, no matter how they cultivated, they would never become the devil of the Hades. Join the Hades? That would never be possible unless they sold their souls and became the puppet of the Hades. All the cultivators saw this scene and did not dare to say anything. The devil python seemed to be addicted to it. He stretched out his hand and several black lights whizzed out. Several devil cultivators who were close to him were instantly hit by the black light. In an instant, their eyes became confused and lifeless. The devil python repeated the same trick, and several black lights returned to the devil python's palm and swallowed them all. The devil chi in the devil python's body increased rapidly. This feeling was like taking drugs, which fascinated the devil python. Just as the devil python was about to attack again, a shadow rushed over and a monstrous murderous aura filled the entire banquet hall. The Earl's house finally made a move. The shadow was the 5-star assassin of the Dark Knight mentioned by Night Soul. The corner of the devil python's eyes twitched and a sense of crisis rose from the bottom of its heart. At this moment, Li Daochong, who was sitting at the back of the banquet hall, closed his eyes slightly and crazily absorbed the thunder power of the Nether Thunder. His body was trembling slightly. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 610. Li Daochong was surprised to find that he could actually absorb the remnant of the nether lightning. How could Li Daochong miss out on such a good thing? Recently, his cultivation had been increasing rapidly, but his yang lightning had been stagnant. As for what was happening in front of him, Li Daochong was not too concerned. The black prison had nothing to do with him in the first place. Li Daochong was only concerned about the safety of his old friends. As long as they were fine, he was too lazy to make a move. Cherry Blossom Gauze might not be a match for old ancestor Tianfeng and the demons, but it definitely had the ability to protect itself. After devouring more than 10 human souls, the fiendish python's eyes twitched. An obscure aura that even he could not detect rushed over. A yellow light flashed across the void. Whoosh! The fiendish python did not turn around, but countless huge scales suddenly grew out from its back. Clang! The yellow light slashed across the scales, causing a crisp sound. At the instant of the collision, a strong shock wave spread out in all directions. The protective barrier that old ancestor Tianfeng had set up earlier was torn apart like a piece of paper. The Black Prison Imperial Palace was also torn apart by the shocking destructive power. Even though the Imperial Palace was refined by old ancestor Tianfeng using the Sky Mystic Gold Elemental technique for 10 years, it was still unable to withstand such a violent impact. The surrounding cultivators were all affected. Many of them were sent flying a few kilometers away by the shockwave. The unluckiest ones were the cultivators on the lower 2 levels who were kept in the dark. Their cultivation was weaker, so they were not invited to the banquet. As the main body of the Tianfeng Trade Fair, the Black Prison Imperial Palace could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people without being crowded. Of course, from the outside, the Black Prison Imperial Palace did not look that big. It was just that the interior was a Nayu space, so the space was huge. However, such a magnificent palace had been torn apart by the attacks of the 2 cultivators. Thousands of lower-level cultivators were killed or injured. Old ancestor Tianfeng, who was in a deadlock with the 3 demons, saw his 500 years of hard work go down the drain. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "You bunch of dead animals! If I don't catch all of you and fry you in a frying pan today, it will be hard to get rid of the hatred in my heart." Old ancestor Tianfeng was furious. After saying that, Patriarch Heavenpeak brought out the Heavenpeak Mountain imprint and a head-sized mountain imprint flew out. In the blink of an eye, it grew several hundred times longer, and a small mountain smashed towards the giant and Fei Lian. But right at this moment, a black flame condensed at the top of the Minor World 9 Serenities formation and shot down from above. Boom! The black flames smashed onto the mountain-sized Sky Peak Mountain Seal. It directly pierced a hole in the Tianfeng Mountain Seal. Patriarch Tianfeng was shocked. The Tianfeng Mountain Seal was an immortal-grade spirit treasure. Even a body integration cultivator wouldn't be able to damage it easily. This black flame effortlessly penetrated the entire magic treasure and directly destroyed the Heavenly Peak Mountain Seal. At the same time, Patriarch Tianfeng sensed an unprecedentedly powerful demonic aura. It was so powerful that even a body integration cultivator like him felt his heart skip a beat. Among the Nether Devils, it was absolutely impossible to produce such a terrifying Nether Devil aura unless one reached the Devil King level. If even Patriarch Heavenpeak was in such a state, the other cultivators would feel even worse. Many of the cultivators under Yuanying were struck unconscious by the demonic energy. After the black flame pierced through the Tianfeng mountain seal, it did not dissipate. Instead, it continued to shoot towards Patriarch Tianfeng. Patriarch Tianfeng's expression changed drastically. He no longer had the calm expression from before. This black flame seemed ordinary and mediocre. However, it emitted an ancient demonic aura that only appeared in the abyss of the Hades. Patriarch Tianfeng felt as though he was facing an ancient demon from the abyss of the Hades. Patriarch Tianfeng felt an unprecedented threat of death. When the black flame descended, the three devils tacitly launched a frenzied attack. Patriarch Tianfeng was attacked from the front and back. At the moment of life and death, the spiritual energy on Patriarch Tianfeng's body exploded. The Tianfeng stab shot out rapidly while the 19 return of peak flying swords flew towards the black flame. The huge man and Fei Lian attacked Patriarch Tianfeng from the front while Black Lotus attacked from the back. Just as the three devils attacked, 2 golden lights shot out from Patriarch Tianfeng's body. The speed was extremely fast. Before Patriarch Tianfeng could react, the 2 golden lights pierced through the foreheads of Fei Lian and Black Lotus. The 2 demons widened their dark red eyes as they looked at old ancestor Tianfeng in disbelief. Immediately after, the 2 devils revealed an expression of extreme pain as a huge amount of spiritual energy poured into their bodies. The 2 devils quickly began to combust. The spiritual energy and devil energy dissipated, and they soon disappeared in the wind. Although the huge man was not attacked by the golden light, he felt the threat of death at that moment and instinctively dodged. The 19 return of peak flying swords could not stop the black flame at all. When they came into contact with each other, they were immediately devoured by the black flame. Patriarch Tianfeng used all his strength but was still unable to dodge the black flame. Bang! The black flame was like a black flame dragon as it struck Patriarch Tianfeng. In that instant, Patriarch Tianfeng took out 5 defensive magic treasures of various type: Spirit Magnetic Shield, Astral Chi Shield, Earth Spirit Shield, Spirit Steel Wall, and Ice Ridge Mountain. All of them were powerful defensive magic treasures that could defend against the attacks of Void Refinement Stage cultivators and even Unity Stage cultivators. However, these defensive magic treasures were like paper in front of the black flame. They were easily burned into nothingness. In the end, the black flame landed on Patriarch Tianfeng, who had nowhere to run. Of course, after going through layers of barriers, the power of the black flames had been greatly weakened. In addition, old ancestor Tianfeng's spiritual highland protective chi was also present. The black flame had been weakened by more than 2/3. However, Patriarch Tianfeng was still unable to withstand the remaining shockwaves. He was sent flying and smashed heavily into the ground. A huge pit with a diameter of over 100 meters was blasted open. Patriarch Tianfeng was lying on his back in the huge pit. His body was badly mutilated, and he looked like he was already dead. Panting heavily, Patriarch Tianfeng was panting heavily. Just now, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Patriarch Tianfeng thought that he was definitely going to die. He had never seen such a terrifying demonic chi before. Patriarch Tianfeng wanted to abandon his physical body and separate his primordial spirit to escape, but he could not do so. The strength of the existence that released this black flame was far above Patriarch Tianfeng. At this moment, the huge man who had just narrowly avoided the Tianfeng stab looked at Patriarch Tianfeng, who was still alive, in shock. Only now did the huge man understand why the fiendish python had set up such a meticulous assassination plan. At first, the huge man felt that the fiendish python was making a mountain out of a molehill and overestimating Patriarch Tian Feng. He was just an early-stage Unity stage cultivator. Was there a need to mobilize so many people? He even needed one of His Highness Sakyamapa's 3 trusted subordinates, Yama King, to take action. Once, it was stored in the Lesser Sky 9 Serenities formation. The huge man did not expect that after adding so many layers of insurance, not only did he fail to kill Patriarch Tian Feng, but Fei Lian and Black Lotus were also killed. A Unity stage cultivator was actually so terrifying. The huge man's dark red eyes revealed a deep fear. The huge man should have jumped into the pit to kill Patriarch Tian Feng. However, he did not dare to do so. He was afraid that this Unity stage old monster still had some trump card. If he got close and used it, he would also die. It was not easy to evolve into a demon, but it was even harder to become a high-grade demon. The huge man did not want to die. On the other side, the fiendish python was ambushed. It fought fiercely with the shadow for a few rounds. Everything happened in an instant. The fiendish python was not prepared at all. Among all the cultivators present, other than Patriarch Tian Feng, the fiendish python did not put anyone else in its eyes. However, an opponent who was on par with it suddenly appeared. How was this possible? The person who ambushed the fiendish python was none other than the 5-star Dark Knight assassin mentioned by Night Soul, Spectral Soul. He was a cultivator at the peak of the Void Refinement Realm, but he was also a body cultivator. He could kill cultivators at the early stage of the Unity stage in close combat. Spectral Soul's speed was ridiculously fast. The fiendish python was a little overwhelmed. After being ambushed, it had been struggling to defend itself. However, the fiendish python had just absorbed more than 10 powerful human souls. These souls were gradually transforming into a part of its demon body. After a few rounds, Spectral Soul was sent flying by the fiendish python. Night Soul saw that the situation was not right and immediately attacked. At this time, the demon cultivators of the Earl's house also attacked the nearby cultivators of the demon sect. The scene, which was originally a one-on-one fight, suddenly became very chaotic. Dozens of cultivators were fighting in a tangled fight. The female cultivators of the Thousand Een sect gathered near the spiritual magnetic cage. This cage, which was supposed to detain them, became a good shelter. Lu Qingyun's spiritual magnetic cage was of a very high level and was full of energy. Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao took out their own defensive magic treasures. They successfully resisted the shock waves just now and did not suffer too much damage. After the Black Prison Imperial Palace was torn apart, all the cultivators who were alive were exposed to the fake Hades space, which was supported by the Hades formation. All the cultivators' strength would be affected by the death chi, and they would not be able to exert their full power. In addition to the pure ghost cultivators, the demon cultivators would also be restrained. Li Daochong stood behind the chaotic crowd and hungrily absorbed the remnants of the netherworld fire. The huge netherworld fire tasted sweet and delicious. It crazily nourished Li Daochong's thunder-nascent soul, which had not been replenished for a long time. Because it was not a netherworld soul, Li Daochong's cultivation did not increase, but his thunder-nascent soul gradually grew. In fact, the remnants of the netherworld fire in the Hades were not so huge. Li Daochong found that he could even absorb and transform the netherworld force in the Hades formation. Although the absorption rate of the netherworld force in the Hades formation was not high, it was the thunder-nascent soul that was replenished by the netherworld force. After Li Daochong reached the mid-divine transformation stage, his primordial spirit was basically formed. However, his thunder-nascent soul was still so small, less than 10 inches. At this moment, Yuanying's yang lightning was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, it broke through Yuanying's limit and became a pure yang lightning primordial spirit. The world in Li Daocheng's body also grew rapidly under the support of the two primordial spirit. Soon, it was more than twice its original size. His cultivation did not increase, but his strength took a huge step forward. Li Daocheng's silent face could not help but reveal a faint smile. To the Hades, he was indeed a bug-like existence. Devouring was everywhere, all the time. This group of underworld devils would never have dreamed that the Hades formation that they painstakingly set up would become his nourishment. Li Daocheng was still wary of the two unfamiliar cultivators and old ancestor Tian Feng. But now, he no longer had such scruples, even if he was only a mid-divine transformation stage cultivator. Out of everyone present, Yin Ping was the one who suffered the least from the shockwaves. The little girl was well protected by Li Daocheng. All of the pressure and shockwaves were blocked by Li Daocheng. There was no way he would miss a single bit. After the three demons appeared, Cherry Blossom Gauze immediately hid beside Li Daocheng and completely retracted her aura. "Young master, it's them." Cherry Blossom Gauze did not know why Li Daocheng suddenly entered a meditative state at this juncture, but she did not disturb him. Only when Li Daocheng slowly opened his eyes did Cherry Blossom Gauze speak. "Amen, I know. It's fine. They are no longer our match." Li Daocheng responded, but his gaze was focused on the spirit magnetic cage several hundred meters away. Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran stood beside goddess Hong Yang with pale faces. The latter's condition was extremely bad. She had suffered heavy injuries from Tian Gangzi's attack. Just as the two were conversing, Feilian and Heilian were killed by Tian Feng. Cherry Blossom Gauze widened her eyes in shock. Feilian and Heilian were once so unreachable in her heart, but now they were killed in an instant. Old ancestor Tian Feng's strength was not to be underestimated. "Young master, the demon sect and Earl House are fighting. Should we help Earl House?" Cherry Blossom Gauze worriedly asked. "No, let them fight among themselves," Li Daocheng said indifferently with his hands behind his back. Chapter 611. Li Daocheng had no interest in the power struggle in the Black Prison. Even if Hades was involved, he didn't want to care. Li Daocheng came to the Black Prison for only two purposes: to sell the devil pills and to sharpen Silver Bottle. Selling the devil pills seemed to be a little difficult now, but Li Daocheng was not in a hurry. If he couldn't sell them, he would absorb them himself. Plans could not keep up with changes. Li Daocheng didn't know that the Cherry Blossom Gauze would give him the Nether Soul Essence to increase his cultivation. Now that he had absorbed so much Nether Fire and Nether Energy, his Thunder Nascent Soul had completely grown into a pure Yang Thunder Primordial Spirit. Li Daocheng's strength had a qualitative leap. Strength was the prerequisite for wealth. Therefore, selling the devil pills was not that important at the moment. There were so many devil cultivators. Li Daocheng could collect a lot of wealth by simply robbing, so he didn't want to sell the devil pills. Improving Silver Bottle became the most important thing at the moment. Li Daocheng couldn't pay attention to this girl all the time. "Silver Bottle, do you see the female cultivator 55 meters to the west?" Li Daocheng suddenly asked. "Young master, do you see her? Is there a problem with her?" Silver Bottle didn't understand. "She's from the demon sect. She just killed an Earl's House cultivator. Go and exchange a few moves with her," Li Daocheng replied immediately. "Ah!" Silver Bottle cried out and said nervously, "Young master, Silver Bottle doesn't know how to fight. This is an order." Li Daocheng knew that it was useless to reason with this girl, so he directly used his trump card. Silver Bottle pouted. She was unwilling, but as long as it was Li Daocheng's order, she couldn't ignore it. Silver Bottle's cultivation was at the mid-stage of Yuanying. Li Daocheng had instilled the mental cultivation technique in her. One was the telekinesis battle technique. One was the 9-split fist technique. As well as the Jade Maiden Universe art of these three cultivation methods, The first two were produced by the hot-blooded upgrader, while the third was obtained by Li Daochong from a dead cultivator on 13 Specter. Because it was a cultivation method tailor-made for female cultivators, Li Daochong did not practice it himself. When Yinping's cultivation had increased substantially, Li Daochong gave the cultivation method to Yinping. In order to allow the silver bottle to quickly become proficient, Li Daochong directly used the Sea of Consciousness cultivation method. After such a long time, he had more or less mastered the cultivation technique silver bottle. He didn't know how adept he was at using it, but at the very least, he knew how to use it. What he lacked was actual combat experience. Silver Bottle didn't dare to disobey Li Daochong's orders, nor would she. After responding, the conflicted look in her eyes gradually faded away. Silver Bottle gritted his teeth and turned into a ray of blue light that shot towards the female demonic cultivator. Silver Bottle, who usually walked carefully for fear of stepping on small animals, had turned into an anxious little white rabbit at this moment. The female demonic cultivator was a deacon of the demon sex Flame Demon Hall. Her cultivation was at the late stage of yuanying, which was a small realm higher than Silver Bottle. Her name was Jade Lotus. Her magic weapon was a Buddhist whisk, and she dressed like a nun. However, the robe she wore was black, and the slit of the robe was very high. Her two slender legs were faintly discernible, fair and charming, perfectly round and slender. Jade Lotus had been in the demon sect for more than 10 years. Her cultivation wasn't high, but she was very good at using her female advantage to charm male cultivators. She kept changing dual cultivation partners along the way. Once the other party was no longer useful, Jade Lotus would take everything he had and then kick him away or even kill him. She only settled down when she successfully seduced the Flame Demon Hall's Hall Master, Kuanqing. Kuanqing was at the early stage of the Void Refinement realm, far above Jade Lotus. His powerful strength made Jade Lotus have no choice but to submit to him and willingly become Kuanqing's concubine instead of a dual cultivation partner. Today, Jade Lotus followed Kuanqing to the Black Dungeon Imperial Palace with the purpose of earning merits. Demon Lord Qi Kuang said that killing a member of the Earl's house would give her a demonic transformation pill. This kind of pill was like a treasure to demonic cultivators as it could increase their cultivation in a very short period of time. With such a temptation, Jade Lotus naturally wouldn't miss it. Becoming a demigod was her biggest goal now. After successfully killing a member of the Earl's house, Jade Lotus wanted to stop. She was very clear about her own capabilities. Yuanying was at the late stage of the Void Refinement realm, so in a battle of this level, she was considered to have completed her mission if she could fish in troubled waters and kill one of them. To be safe, there was no need to take any more risk. Bringing Kuanqing with her was the safest. Just as Jade Lotus was about to turn around, the corner of her eyes suddenly twitched as she felt a sense of danger. She saw a ray of blue light rushing towards her. Jade Lotus didn't think too much and stabbed her longsword towards the ray of light. Clang! There was a crisp sound. Jade Lotus's longsword collided with a longsword. This longsword was Silver Vase's magic weapon, the Silver Moon Sword. In fact, this sword was also a Mystic Heaven-grade magic weapon that Li Daochong had obtained from 13 Specter. It was 5 feet long and 4 fingers wide. It was refined from an unknown magic metal and was very hard and tough. It was comparable to Tsang ink before it was upgraded. The entire blade was silver and emitted a threatening cold light. Silver Vase had already learned the first 3 stages of the 9 splits saber technique, so she naturally knew how to use a sword. The two women were evenly matched and both took 3 steps back. Jade Lotus was baffled. She had never seen this female cultivator who suddenly attacked her, and she wasn't from the Earl's house. This was because this woman didn't have a trace of demonic qi on her body. It was very pure spiritual qi. She was undoubtedly a spirit cultivator. "Who are you? Why did you sneak attack me?" Anger flashed across Jade Lotus's enchanting face. Jade Lotus's heart was filled with murderous intent. She would never let anyone who wanted to kill her live. However, this female cultivator's aura gave her a lot of pressure, even if her cultivation wasn't as high as hers. Because of this, Jade Lotus suppressed her murderous intent and questioned. My young master asked me to exchange a few moves with you. Silver Vase never lied and spoke the truth. Your young master? Who's your young master? Jade Lotus was confused. You don't need to know. Just exchange moves with me. Silver Vase said stiffly. This was the first time she had spoken to a stranger alone in such a tone. Who do you think you are? Do you think I'll exchange moves with you just because you want me to? Little girl, seeing that you're not from the Earl's house, I won't bicker with you. Get lost now and I'll pretend I didn't see you. Jade Lotus didn't want to cause trouble and suppressed her murderous intent. No, my young master asked me to exchange moves with you. You have to exchange moves with me. Silver Vase said stubbornly. What the hell? Jade Lotus looked at Silver Vase's pair of foxy eyes and narrowed slightly. This little girl in front of her spoke strangely, but didn't seem to be faking it. She really seemed like an inexperienced girl. But why was her aura so strong? Who was this young master she was talking about? Who had the leisure to exchange moves with her at this juncture? Was there something wrong with her head? Didn't she see the demon sect joining forces with the Hades to wipe out all the cultivators in the Black Dungeon Palace? Jade Lotus glanced around, trying to find the young master the girl was talking about. However, she didn't notice anyone suspicious looking over here. It was chaos all around. Dozens of cultivators were fighting with each other. Rays of light shot out in all directions. Sabers flashed and swords flashed. Explosions continued. Shouts, screams, and screams were endless. Silver Vase saw that Jade Lotus didn't move and became anxious. Worried that her young master would blame her, she simply attacked again. 9 splits saber technique, first stage, crushing rocks and splitting earth. Jade Lotus raised her lotus sword to block. In a breath's time, the two girls exchanged more than 10 moves. Although the whole process was extremely short, Jade Lotus encountered the biggest crisis of her life. At least 3 times, Jade Lotus was almost cut by the saber. She was completely no match for this girl who suddenly appeared. But for some reason, the girl clearly had 3 chances to knock her down, but she stopped and didn't kill her. At first, Jade Lotus thought that the girl was playing with her, but she soon realized that wasn't the case. Although the girl's technique was strong, she didn't know how to use it. Her actual combat experience was very poor. The girl didn't even realize that she could defeat her. Another possibility was that she didn't have the intention to kill her. Jade Lotus's foxy eyes flashed with a sinister brilliance. In the Black Dungeon, being soft-hearted to your opponent was being cruel to yourself. No matter how strong you were, it was useless if you didn't know how to use it. After Jade Lotus gradually understood Silver Vase's methods, her heart calmed down. In the distance, Li Daochong and Cherry Blossom Gauze watched the battle between Silver Vase and Jade Lotus. Young master, with the way Silver Vase is fighting, even if she has the upper hand, the opponent will turn the tables and even kill her. Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't understand why Silver Vase was fighting like this. This girl is too soft-hearted. Li Daochong's tone was calm, but his heart was anxious. Sure enough, after dozens of exchanges between Jade Lotus and Silver Vase, the former had completely grasped the latter's mentality. She's just a fledgling and she dares to fight me? Jade Lotus's face flashed with murderous intent. The long sword in her hand turned into dozens of saber auras and pierced toward Silver Vase. Clang clang clang, Silver Vase used the 9 splits saber technique as usual, successfully neutralizing Jade Lotus's attacks one by one and forcing her to reveal 2 openings. But Silver Vase didn't attack. Jade Lotus did it on purpose this time. She suddenly shouted, "Sword Lotus Bloom!" Dozens of saber auras shot out in all directions like a blooming lotus. Silver Vase was completely enveloped by the saber auras and had nowhere to run. The girl had almost never fought in real combat. Whether it was her mentality or her technique, she was a complete blank. Her ability to adapt to changes was extremely poor. Even though Silver Vase's strength was above Jade Lotus, she could only become a live target at this moment. She stood in place, not knowing what to do. Just as all the saber auras were about to land on Silver Vase, a shadow flashed. Suddenly, a shadow flashed, and Li Daochong appeared in front of Yin Ping. The lotus saber auras all landed on Li Daochong's body. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, young master! Silver Vase exclaimed. The lotus saber went straight through Li Daochong's chest. It went through his chest and came out from his back. Silver Vase was dumbfounded. Blood flowed out from Li Daochong's chest and back. How could this be? Silver Vase hugged Li Daochong and said in a daze. Wasn't young master invincible? How could young master be injured? Silver Vase, if you don't attack the enemy, you will be the one to die. Li Daochong murmured with blood flowing out of his mouth. As he spoke, he reached out and touched Silver Vase's cheek. He continued, when young master isn't here, you have to take good care of yourself. Silver Vase's tears flowed out like a waterfall. She couldn't suppress her emotions and shouted, Young master, it can't be. You will be fine. How could a Yuanian cultivator kill you? You lied to me, you lied to me. Li Daochong's eyes blurred, as if he could no longer hear Silver Vase's voice. The hand that was caressing his cheek became weaker and weaker. Then, it fell to the side. Silver Vase felt a buzzing sound in her head. The brilliance in her eyes instantly became ferocious. So this is the young master you speak of? I thought he was some powerful figure, but it turns out he's so useless. However, this young master of yours is willing to block a sword for you. He really cares about you. Don't cry, I'll send you to accompany the young master. Jade Lotus's seductive eyes were filled with disdain. The weak would not be pitted in the black prison. The only thing that awaited them was death. Baidu search Xing 81 Chinese Networko. No advertising message. Chapter 612. Saying this, the lotus sword in Jade Lotus's hand shot out towards Silver Vase. Silver Vase held Li Daochong in one hand and caught the lotus sword in the other. Blood dripped from the gaps between Silver Bottle's fingers, but she didn't care at all. Red light flashed in her originally beautiful eyes. Young master, what a good person. He never hit or scolded me. There is no card slave in this world who is happier than me. How could you kill young master? Silver Vase's voice was low and hoarse, without the vitality of the past. Jade Lotus was stunned. She could catch a flying sword with her bare hands? This pung. Silver Vase's aura suddenly changed. At the same time it exploded, it brought with it a strong murderous aura. This murderous aura was filled with grief and reluctance. Silver Vase gently placed Li Daochong's corpse on the ground, as if it was isolated from the world. When she stood up, her petite body trembled slightly, and with a swoosh she disappeared. Jade Lotus's eyes widened. She couldn't see the girl's movements clearly. When Silver Vase appeared, she was already standing half a meter in front of Jade Lotus. The two women faced each other. Jade Lotus instantly attacked, her lotus sword still in Silver Vase's hand. But before Jade Lotus could attack, she felt a pain in her lower abdomen. Chi. Silver Vase's blood-stained hand was still holding the sword, and she stabbed it into Jade Lotus's lower abdomen. Chi chi chi, 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, just like that, the Silver Vase sat and stabbed like a machine. Jade Lotus stared at the girl in front of her, full of disbelief, and hit the girl with her palm. It was useless, as if she had hit a stone statue. Silver Vase didn't care about Jade Lotus at all, and continued to stab with her sword. Hee, I'm going to eat you. Suddenly, Silver Vase grinned, but that smile was extremely cruel. Jade Lotus kept spitting out blood, and the disbelief in her eyes turned into horror. She wanted to separate Yuanying, but she couldn't. An invisible killing intent enveloped her, making it impossible for her to do anything. Silver Vase said as she grabbed White Lotus's hair and bit down on her neck. Pulling tendons and flaying skin, she hated her to the bone. Silver Bottle's only thought at the moment was to completely destroy the woman who hurt the young master. The fear in Jade Lotus's heart made her extremely frightened, even more frightened than if she had seen a ghost. This girl was crazy. Yu Lianhua knew that if she did not do something, she would really die. Her body could recover from injuries, but if she injured Yuanying, she would really be finished. Jade Lotus stretched out her hand and a talisman appeared in her hand. It was a level 15 talisman. This was her life-saving trump card. Jade Lotus gathered all her strength and struck Silver Bottle's chest with her palm. Puff! Silver Bottle spat out a mouthful of blood onto Jade Lotus Flower's face. But the Silver Bottle didn't budge. Jade Lotus was dumbfounded. Are you crazy? The Silver Bottle didn't seem to hear him and bit down. Ah! Jade Lotus let out a heart-wrenching scream. She originally wanted to send the Silver Bottle flying with a palm strike, then release a spirit talisman to kill it. But to her surprise, the palm strike that she had infused with all her strength didn't even cause the other party's body to tremble. Jade Lotus Flower felt a towering rage burning within the girl. She no longer cared about anything. The only thought in her mind was to kill her, and in the most brutal and painful way possible. Jade Lotus Flower was filled with regret. In this world, there were two types of people that should never be provoked. Even if they weren't strong, it was best not to provoke them. The first type was people who didn't want to live. The second type was people who had a one-track mind. If someone combined the two types of people, you would either be completely annihilated or die a horrible death. Silver Bottle's bite tore a large chunk out of Jade Lotus Flower's neck. Jade Lotus Flower wanted to ask for help, but who could save her? The Flame Demon Hall's Hall Master, Kuanqing, was currently locked in a fierce battle with Earl's House's Long Ernyang. He couldn't even protect himself and didn't notice what was happening. Jade Lotus Flower gritted her teeth and shot out a spirit talisman. At such a close distance, she would also suffer when the spirit talisman hit the target. But Jade Lotus Flower couldn't care less. Perishing together was better than being torn to shreds by the enemy. But just as Jade Lotus Flower made her move, the girl in front of her suddenly disappeared. The spirit talisman shot into the distance. What's going on? When Jade Lotus Flower reacted, she saw that the girl was being held in the arms of a young man more than 10 meters away. But why did the young man look a little familiar? Jade Lotus Flower gasped. Wasn't this the young master who had been pierced by her lotus sword beam? How did he come back to life? Why, young master, why you're not dead? The red glow in Silver Bottle's eyes disappeared the moment he saw Li Daochong. He looked at Li Daochong, who had come back to life, with a confused expression. Silly, how could young master die so easily? Li Daochong gently scratched Silver Bottle's nose. Silver Bottle's expression changed. He hurriedly broke free from Li Daochong's embrace and searched the latter's body for something. Where's the wound? Silver Bottle looked around and found that Li Daochong's body was intact. She then looked at the place where she had put Li Daochong. There was nothing there except for a yellow talisman. Silver Bottle quickly recognized that it was an advanced clone talisman. Young master, you lied to me. Silver Bottle realized that she had been tricked by her young master. Ha ha ha, if I didn't do this, you wouldn't know how to fight. Li Daochong looked up and laughed. Young master, don't scare me like this in the future. I'll be scared to death. Silver Bottle pouted. Okay. I won't scare you, I won't scare you. Li Daochong nodded repeatedly and continued, but you have to finish this battle. If you lose, young master will punish you. Jade Lotus Flower's spirit talisman didn't hit any target until it hit the uppermost wall of the nether formation. With a boom, it exploded. The firepower of the level 15 fire talisman was quickly absorbed by the nether formation. Silver Bottle nodded slightly. Young master, Silver Bottle understands your good intentions. Now, Silver Bottle understands. Li Daochong nodded. Go. When Silver Bottle looked at Jade Lotus Flower again, the murderous aura on her face had disappeared. However, the indecisiveness from before was also gone. There was a certain determination. Jade Lotus Flower was no longer in the mood to compete with Silver Bottle. She turned around and tried to escape. Silver Bottle held the Silver Moon Saber in her hand and turned into a ray of blue light that shot out rapidly. The saber slashed down. Jade Lotus Flower was instantly split in half. Then, it exploded from the inside out. Silver Bottle didn't stop after killing Jade Lotus Flower. She turned around and flew into the group of cultivators in the chaotic battle. Silver Bottle continuously struck out the first 3 stages of the 9-split saber art. In the blink of an eye, the demon sect, which was originally in an advantageous position, suddenly became tense. No demonic cultivator below the soul formation realm could withstand the power of Silver Bottle's saber. The 9-split saber art had become even more unpredictable under Li Daochong's continuous evolution. Its power had also increased. The ray of blue light wreaked havoc among the group of cultivators in the chaotic battle. Wherever it passed, not a single cultivator was left alive. You've finally grown up. Li Daochong's face inadvertently revealed a faint smile. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 613. A gratified smile appeared on Li Daochong's face at the sight of Silver Bottle swinging her saber through the chaotic battle. However, after Silver Bottle killed 5 Yuanying fiendish cultivators, Li Daochong transmitted his voice to Silver Bottle, telling her to stop. Silver Vase was obedient. She immediately withdrew from the crowd and returned. Silver Bottle might be able to handle Yuanying fiendish cultivators, but soul formation stage cultivators weren't something she could handle. Li Daochong hid among the other cultivators with Silver Bottle and Cherry Blossom Gauze, while his spiritual sense locked onto the spirit magnetic cage in the distance. Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran were currently in a very bad situation. Almost all of the female cultivators of the Thousand Yin sect were injured. In the midst of the chaotic battle, all of the female cultivators of the Thousand Yin sect were holed up in the spirit magnetic cage and didn't dare to take even half a step out. Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao were both dejected. The demon sect and the Earl's house were 2 major powers. Regardless of who won, the Thousand Yin sect would suffer. Sect Master, let's think of a way to leave this place. Mu Jiaojiao's spiritual sense was already unable to circulate quickly, but her intuition told her that the Thousand Yin sect would be finished if they stayed here. Leave? How? I just used a detection talisman to scan the area. In a sense, this place is no longer the Black Prison. It's a space isolated by an infernal formation, Qian Yueling said with a mournful expression. Sect Master, don't you have a spatial teleportation magic treasure? Can't we leave this place with any of them? Mu Jiaojiao asked curiously. We can't leave. I can't activate that magic treasure at all. Even if I could, the probability of teleporting so many people out is less than 10%. The infernal formation set up by the Hades is extremely powerful. Even body integration stage cultivators can't pass through it. Qian Yueling said with a regretful expression. Senior Hongyang, are you alright? Yi Feiyue saw Goddess Hongyang spit out another mouthful of blood and hurried over to support her. I'm fine. Goddess Hongyang tried to hold on, but the blood in her body was churning uncontrollably. Her voice was extremely weak. Hongyang, I've implicated you this time. Murong Zhu apologized. You didn't know that something like this would happen. Goddess Hongyang smiled bitterly. Over 100 cultivators participated in the battle between the demon sect and the Earl's house. Both sides had their share of victories and defeats, but the battle between these disciples couldn't affect the overall situation. The only thing that could really affect the situation was the contest between the two super killers of the fiendish python and the Dark Knight. Even the battle between Wu Chanda and Qi Kuang was no longer that important. Originally, the fiendish python was no match for the two super killers, Night Soul and Ghost Spirit. However, after devouring the human souls of more than 10 void refining stage cultivators, its demonic body evolved. The fiendish python, which was originally a low-level fiendish general, had now become a middle-level fiendish general, which was equivalent to a middle-stage combination realm cultivator. In addition, the devil body was already extremely powerful, so the strength of the fiendish python increased exponentially. Even if Night Soul and Ghost joined forces, they were still unable to do much, and this situation was becoming more and more obvious. At this level, the aftermath of the battle was enough to kill low-level cultivators. At this time, all the cultivators who were still alive had retreated to the edge of the mini-omnipresent Nine Serenities formation, and the formation wall was right behind them. They were 6 or 7 kilometers away from the center of the battle, but such a distance was still not very safe. Once the two sides broke out into a violent collision, many cultivators would still suffer and even be crushed to death by the aftermath. More than half of the hundreds of thousands of cultivators who came to participate in the Celestial Peak Trade Fair had been killed or injured. Almost all the remaining cultivators were ghost cultivators and demon cultivators above the soul formation stage. Only a small number of Yuanian cultivators who had received protection were still alive. At first, Wu Chanda was full of confidence. He thought that with Night Soul and the 5-star killer, they could definitely wipe out the demon sect. After today, the Black Prison would belong to the Earl's house. However, he never dreamed that the demon sect also had a backer, and this backer was the Hades. At this time, Wu Chanda felt aggrieved. He finally had the opportunity to destroy the demon sect, but it turned out that they had no bottom line. In the battle between Wu Chanda and Qi Kuang, both of them were slacking off and didn't use their full strength. Long Ernyang was not at a disadvantage in the battle against the two hall masters of the demon sect, but the battle between them was no longer important. Everyone's attention was focused on the battle between the fiendish python and the two killers. At a glance, it was obvious that between the two forces, they were the strongest. The demon man from the Hades is so powerful. The two seniors' strength is comparable to that of an early-stage combination stage cultivator, but they still can't defeat the demon man even if they join forces. Let's pray that the two seniors can win. If the demon man wins, we'll all become a feast for the Hades. Damn the demon sect. If I don't die this time, I'll be the first to join whoever wants to crusade against the demon sect. The demon sect has been plotting from the beginning. First, they framed the Thousand Een sect and pointed their spearhead at the Thousand Een sect. They instigated the fight between the ancestor of Tian Feng and the Thousand Een sect. The Thousand Een sect was crippled, and the ancestor of Tian Feng's strength was greatly reduced. Only then did the demon sect attack the isolated and helpless ancestor of Tian Feng, and finally provoked a war. An old demon cultivator sighed. At this moment, a flash of light swept across the center. Ghost used his killing move, but the fiendish python blocked it with his bare hands. Boom! With a loud bang, the air billowed. The cultivators who had already escaped to the formation wall were thrown off their feet by the air billow. Some of the cultivators were directly annihilated by the impact. In front of the high-level cultivators and the demon man, the low-level cultivators were not worth mentioning at all. They were as small as ants and could be destroyed with a flick of the finger. In the spiritual magnetic cage, Goddess Hong Yang felt a chill in her heart when she saw this cruel scene. In the Federation, soul formation cultivators were the most powerful cultivators. But here, they couldn't even withstand the aftermath of the battle and were instantly annihilated. Tens of thousands of cultivators died in the aftermath of the battle. Not even their corpses were left behind. After the shockwave dissipated, the entire area covered by the ghost array seemed to have been cleared. Night's soul floated in the air and stared dumbfoundedly at the fiendish python, which was not far away, pierced through Ghost's chest with one hand. Night's soul's face turned pale. Was this the strength of a demon general? As a 4-star assassin, Night's soul had seen all kinds of situations. But at this moment, he lost the ability to think. This demon man was too powerful. He was so powerful that he couldn't hurt him at all. He couldn't hurt him. Ghost was a body-refining cultivator at the peak of the void refinement realm. His body was as strong as a heavenly Xian magic treasure. But in front of the demon man, he was like a piece of paper. Night's soul's strength was not as strong as Ghost, and the latter had been killed. How could he be a match for the demon man alone? The fiendish python sniffed the smell of blood in the air and opened its mouth to bite Ghost's neck. In addition to human souls, human blood was also the favorite of the demon of the Hades. At the moment when the fiendish python opened its mouth, a cold and gloomy smile appeared on Ghost's face. The fiendish python suddenly felt that something was wrong. Its pair of dark red eyes flashed. Self-explosion. The fiendish python blurted out. Ghost's body shone brightly. When the cultivators in the distance saw this scene, they all covered their heads and fled like rats. It was as if the end of the world had come. The self-explosion of a cultivator who was close to the combination realm could be said to be destructive. It would be easy to destroy a small cultivation planet. In this narrow space with a radius of only 7 or 8 kilometers and a height of no more than 5 kilometers, Ghost's self-explosion could destroy everything. The Specter's self-destruction was enough to destroy everything here, unless you had the strength to withstand such an explosion. The scales on the fiendish python's back instantly burst open and wrapped around Ghost. Baidu search 81 Chinese website. No advertising message. Chapter 6:14. The scales on the fiendish python's body turned into a black sphere and enveloped Ghost. At that moment, Ghost's eyes widened and he let out an unwilling roar. However, he had already triggered the explosion of his primordial spirit, so he couldn't stop. Almost at the same time, boom! A deafening sound came from the sealed sphere of black scales. The explosion, which should have been extremely terrifying, was completely enveloped by the black sphere. Nothing was left out. Within a second or two, the black sphere turned into dust and disappeared. A trace of black blood flowed from the corner of the fiendish python's mouth. The black scales were equivalent to his avatar, a part of his body. If he hadn't been forced to do so, he would never have used his scales. The fiendish python licked his lips, and a faint red light flashed in his eyes. He was somewhat unwilling to give up. A mere cultivator at the peak of the void refinement realm had made him pay the price of his fiendish python avatar. It was all his fault for being careless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given this human cultivator a chance to self-detonate. The fiendish python was secretly annoyed. In the distance, all the cultivators who thought they were going to be destroyed by the self-explosion were shocked at the same time. The self-detonation of a cultivator at the peak of the void refinement realm was strangled just like that, without even a trace of aftershock. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Wuchanda froze in the air, his body trembling slightly. Even a 5-star Dark Knight assassin was no match for him. Even his self-detonation couldn't hurt him. What kind of gap was this? Wuchanda felt a chill in his heart. He no longer had the desire to fight with Qi Kuang. In fact, Night's Soul was the most uneasy person at this time. He and Ghost couldn't defeat the demon even if they joined forces, let alone Ghost's death. How could they fight one-on-one? As an assassin, Night's Soul had always been like a cheetah hiding in the dark. He always looked down on his target. At this moment, Night's Soul didn't have that kind of attitude. His hands behind his back were trembling slightly. Night Soul even lost the desire to take the initiative to attack, even though the fiendish python was in a state of emptiness for a short while. However, Night Soul didn't dare to make a move even though it was such a good opportunity. He was mentally defeated. The fiendish python panted slightly and quickly came to his senses. He turned to look at Night Soul and said faintly, "Are you going to self-detonate too?" His tone was bland and dull, as if it was just a casual conversation between two acquaintances. But in Night Soul's ears, it was even more impactful than a threatening roar. It meant that the other party didn't take him seriously at all. Night Soul felt a chill down his spine and his heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he turned around and flew away like an arrow. Escape was the only thing Night Soul could think of at this moment. In the blink of an eye, Night Soul came back to his senses. He couldn't escape because this place had been completely sealed off. It was an enclosed space. In a moment of desperation, Night Soul slammed into the wall of the Netherworld array. Because he was scared out of his wits, he didn't think of anything else when he ran away. When Night Soul realized that there was an array wall in front of him, it was too late to stop, and he crashed into the array wall. With a loud bang, it was as if the sky had collapsed. However, it was all bark and no bite. Other than Night Soul feeling a little dizzy, the Netherworld array didn't even shake. The miniature omnipresent Nine Darkness formation was an infernal devilish formation left behind by the abyssal fiend celestial of the Hades. Even body integration cultivators wouldn't be able to escape from it, let alone spatial tempering cultivators. Night Soul's cultivation level was about the same as Spectral Soul's, but Spectral Soul's actual combat power was stronger than Night Soul's. Night Soul's escape made the hearts of the demon cultivators who were still fighting in the Earl's house turn cold. What happened next made their cold hearts sink into despair. The fiendish python appeared behind Night Soul in a flash and clawed at the top of Night Soul's head. Night Soul didn't resist at all. His eyes were wide open and he tried to struggle, but his body was no longer under his control. Demonic aura surged into Night Soul's body like an ocean. Without much resistance, his primordial spirit was swallowed by the fiendish python. Then, Night Soul's body shriveled rapidly and soon turned into a dried corpse. The fiendish python loosened its grip, and Night Soul's shriveled body turned into ashes and disappeared. All of Night Soul's vitality was devoured by the fiendish python in an instant. The internal injuries that he had suffered when defending himself against Spectral Soul's self-explosion quickly recovered. The taste of a human soul is really sweet and delicious. The fiendish python took a deep breath and murmured to itself with a look of enjoyment. Then, it looked at the chaotic battle between the cultivators of the Earl's house and the demon sect. "It's time to eat." As it spoke, the fiendish python looked up and opened its mouth. A black python was spat out. When it spat out the black python, the fiendish python's expression was a little painful, as if it was having a difficult birth. As soon as the black python was spat out, its body gradually grew bigger until it was 30 meters long. The surrounding demonic chi suddenly increased. The black python's ferocious snake tongue stretched out and retracted, and a terrifying dark red light flickered in its eyes. Hiss! The black python let out a sharp hiss and shot out like a black bolt of lightning. In an instant it appeared in front of one of the demon cultivators. The demon cultivator didn't have time to react before he was swallowed by the black python. He didn't even have time to scream before he became food in the black python's stomach. The black python didn't stop at all. Another demon cultivator was swallowed. In the blink of an eye, 4 demon cultivators were eaten just like that. The demon cultivators of the Earl's house were in a mess. They were no longer in the mood to fight. Not to mention the small fries, even Wu Chanda was scared out of his wits. He was already traumatized by Ming Mo. At this moment, he started to doubt his life. "Everyone, don't panic. This is a sealed, isolated space. Can you escape? You'll only be defeated one by one. Since you're going to die anyway, why don't you work together to deal with that damned beast first? In the midst of the chaos, Long Earnyang's voice boomed in the sea of consciousness of every demon cultivator in the Earl's house. Her voice was sharp and deafening. It was as if she was roaring in their ears. The demon cultivators of the Earl's house were shocked. Their panicked thoughts calmed down a little. Long Earnyang was right. There was no way they could escape. Even Night Soul couldn't break through the array wall, so how could they? If so many of them joined forces, they might have a chance to survive. Everyone, listen to my orders. Aim at the 7 feet below the damned beast's head and attack it with all your might. Don't hold back. Do your best and kill it. In less than a second, Long Earnyang's voice sounded again. All the demon cultivators of the Earl's house turned red at this moment. No one wanted to die. Their lives were at stake, so no one would hold back. For a moment, rays of light shot out in all directions, bombarding the black python from all directions. Chi Kuang looked at Wu Chanda, who was floating more than 10 meters away from him, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Wu Chanda, in the end, your Earl's house still has to rely on a woman to preside over the overall situation. I've overestimated you all these years. It turns out that you're just a cowardly rat. To think that I've treated you as my greatest enemy. Now it seems that you're really not worthy. Wu Chanda's face was gloomy and he didn't say a word. However, this state only lasted for a breath. Suddenly, his expression changed and he cupped his hands. I was blind to not know that Sect Master Qi was a subordinate of Demon Hades. I'm willing to join the demon sect and share your burdens. The smile on Chi Kuang's face became even clearer. Wu Chanda, do you think that's possible? Boom. Just as the 2 big shots of the black prison were talking, a loud noise came from afar. The attacks of dozens of demon cultivators smashed onto the black python's body. Terrifying explosions shook, and wave after wave rolled in the enclosed space. The cultivators who retreated to the vicinity of the formation wall suffered one after another. Every time the shock wave hit, thousands of cultivators would die. There were 500,000 demon cultivators and demon cultivators who came to participate in the Tianfeng Trade Fair, but now less than half of them were left. The indiscriminate and crazy attacks continued for several minutes. The group of demon cultivators of the Earl's house, who were at the end of their rope, fought with all their strength until they were exhausted. When the bombardment subsided, the brilliance disappeared and the dust dispersed. The black python was lazily suspended in the void, and not even a single snake scale was damaged. The black python looked as if it had just experienced a comfortable massage. Long Earnyang's heart was bleeding. What kind of demon beast was this? Continue to kill. Long Earnyang's eyes were bloodshot as she roared. However, just as she spat out these 3 words, she felt a chill in her chest. Looking down, she saw a hand coming out of her chest. Long Earnyang turned her face in astonishment. The fiendish python looked at her expressionlessly. You have more guts than Wu Chanda. I appreciate you very much. It's not bad to be my concubine. Unfortunately, you are a human being, not a ghost. Therefore, you can only become my food. After saying that, the fiendish python stretched out a tentacle and pierced into Long Earnyang's glabella. Long Earnyang's beautiful eyes widened. Her body shriveled and her primordial spirit was annihilated. Like Night Soul, she soon became a dry corpse and then disappeared. Long Earnyang was the last spiritual support of the demon cultivators of the Earl's house. When she died, the others completely lost their sense of propriety and flew around like headless flies. However, in this enclosed space, how could they escape? The black python flew again. For a time, the demon cultivators of the Earl's house were like mosquitoes in summer, while the black python was like a hunting dragonfly, wantonly catching prey. The 2 protectors of the Earl's house, who were fighting with the 3 leaders of the demon sect, knew that the fate of the Earl's house was exhausted. They fought desperately and perished together with the 2 leaders. When they were about to self-destruct, The fiendish python suddenly appeared and annihilated their primordial spirits instantly. They couldn't even self-destruct. The fiendish python licked its lips regretfully. These two human souls were very powerful. Unfortunately, in order to prevent them from self-destructing, the fiendish python didn't have time to devour them. It could only destroy them. Otherwise, it would repeat the mistake of Ghost's self-destruction. Although the fiendish python had almost recovered, it didn't have the scales of the fiendish python anymore. It could only reluctantly destroy them. Among the 3 leaders of the demon sect, only the leader of the Balrog sect, Kuanqing, was still alive. In just a few minutes, Wu Chanda was the only one left in the Earl's house. The rest of the people, not even their bones were left. Baidu search 81 Chinese networko. No advertising message. Chapter 6:15. Wu Chanda's back was already soaked in sweat, and fear spread throughout his body. He didn't even want to show his goodwill to Qi Kuang. Unfortunately, it was too late. Wu Chanda knew that he was going to die, but he still wanted to struggle. Honorable exalted Hades, I'm willing to follow in Hades' footsteps and become Hades' most loyal dog. Please give me a way out. Wu Chanda's voice wasn't loud. However, the Black Prison's cultivators who were 7 to 8 kilometers away heard it clearly. The cultivators who were still alive were at least Yuanying's peak cultivation. This distance naturally couldn't stop their hearing. Pfft! Someone directly spat out a mouthful of saliva. I didn't expect Wu Chanda to be the most cowardly person in the Earl's house. TSK, he's always so arrogant, but it turns out that he's a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Fellow Taoists who joined the Earl's house are all blind. Many cultivators shook their heads, and some stared angrily at Wu Chanda. His actions not only embarrassed the Earl's house, but also all human cultivators. Will Hades take Wu Chanda in? A few cultivators asked curiously. A few cultivators who didn't have any bottom line and principles waited expectantly for Ming Mo's reaction. They even hoped that Ming Mo would take Wu Chanda in so that they could also pledge their allegiance. To these fiendish cultivators and ghost cultivators, it was fine as long as they were alive. There was no difference whether they were human or ghost. However, just as they were waiting for Ming Mo's reaction, a huge black shadow flashed behind Wu Chanda. Chi. Wu Chanda's chest was pierced. A huge hand went through his back and came out from his chest. Hades doesn't need dogs. He needs dog meat. Food is scarce. A thunderous voice sounded. The one who spoke was the only survivor of the battle with Patriarch Tianfeng. At this moment, he was floating behind Wu Chanda, and a forearm the size of a bucket had completely pierced through the latter's chest. Wu Chanda's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked down at the huge hand that had pierced through his chest. Wu Chanda wanted to make a final struggle, trying to escape with his primordial spirit, but the dense devil chi enveloped him tightly. His essence soul couldn't fly out at all. The giant man opened his mouth wide. That mouth was actually the size of a water jar and swallowed Wu Chanda whole. This terrifying scene caused many cultivators in the distance to be unable to look straight at it. Some female cultivators were so frightened that their beautiful faces turned pale and they cried out in alarm. Wu Chanda of the Earl's house, who had ruled the Black Prison for over 300 years, was swallowed alive by the Nether Demon. All the cultivators couldn't help but shudder. Would they be swallowed by the Nether Devil like Wu Chanda? Those devil cultivators and ghost cultivators who were still fantasizing about submitting to Hades to save their lives felt their hearts turn cold. Young master, it's so scary. Yin Ping's delicate body trembled slightly. She grabbed onto Li Daocheng's clothes tightly and hid behind him. She didn't dare to look at the horrifying scene. Li Daocheng didn't say a word. He quietly looked at the spirit magnetic cage in the distance. He had been thinking about how to rescue Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran and leave this damned place. Li Daocheng thought about it. The only thing he could think of was the teleportation array that Cherry Blossom Gauze used on 13 Specter. Insha, can your teleportation array leave this place? Li Daochong transmitted his voice. Young master, I can't lock the space outside through the Mini Sky 9 Serenities array. If possible, I can teleport out. Cherry Blossom Gauze replied. Li Daochong didn't say a word. He focused his divine sense on a line and drilled it into the wall of the array. The strong resistance made it difficult for Li Daochong's divine sense to move forward. There were distortions, pulling, and invisible barriers. Every inch of progress was extremely difficult for his divine sense, but it didn't completely stop. Li Daochong concentrated on driving his divine sense to pass through the wall of the array. Li Daochong's divine sense was close to that of a combination realm cultivator in terms of breadth. It was more condensed and sensitive than an early-stage combination realm cultivator, and its strength was comparable to a middle-stage combination realm cultivator. But in front of the Mini Sky 9 Serenities array, it didn't seem to be enough. Li Daochong could only extend his divine sense bit by bit. The wall didn't seem to be thick. His divine sense penetrated dozens of meters, but still didn't reach the other side. This was the first time that Li Daochong tried to use his divine sense to penetrate the array. At this time, the giant netherworld demon burped contentedly after swallowing Wu Chanda. The fiendish python was unwilling. Wu Chanda was his prey, but now he was swallowed by the giant. The fiendish python was a little annoyed that his prey was snatched away. Although his status in the Hades was higher than the giant was not his subordinate. The fiendish python could command the giant, but he didn't dare to attack him because he couldn't do it without leaving traces. Once it was found that the fiendish python killed his companion, his devil soul would be swallowed by the Lord of Hades. It was precisely because the giant man knew this that he took the initiative to eat Wu Chanda. Just now, the giant had been monitoring ancestor Tianfeng. He was a little absent-minded and missed the opportunity to eat. If he didn't act, he wouldn't even be able to drink the leftovers. The giant completely annihilated one of the 3 giants of the Black Prison, the Earl's house. The people of the demon sect also suffered a lot of casualties in the battle just now. Less than half of them were left. Only Qi Kuang and Kuanqing had real strength. The fiendish python glanced at the giant with gloomy eyes, but quickly moved away and looked at the nearest spiritual magnetic cage. That was another delicious meal. How could the fiendish python miss it? Looking at the entire space of the array, if all the remaining cultivators were swallowed, the fiendish python would advance to another level. The fiendish python couldn't suppress his inner joy when he thought of the possibility of advancing to a high-level devil general. Here were all cooked ducks, and no one could escape. The fiendish python slowly landed in front of the spiritual magnetic cage. The dark red light in his eyes jumped slightly, and he looked at the female cultivators in the cage like a wild beast looking at little white rabbit. The black python followed closely and landed next to the fiendish python. Most of its long body crawled on the ground and raised its head high, like a giant cobra. The snake tongue in its mouth kept swallowing, and every time it went in and out, it would make a hissing sound. The giant was not satisfied and also followed. He wouldn't let the fiendish python enjoy the delicious food alone. Qian Yueling smiled bleakly. She never thought that her final ending would be like this. She had thought of countless possibilities: dying in battle, being assassinated, dying while exploring the secret realm, or being possessed by the devil. She just didn't think that she would hide in the cage and be slaughtered without any resistance. In the black prison, she was the she-devil that everyone respected. How could she be reduced to a little white rabbit? This was too damn ironic. Sect Master. Mu Jiaojiao suddenly called out softly. Qian Yueling turned to look at Mu Jiaojiao and reached out to hold the latter's soft and boneless hand. I'm sorry. Qian Yueling glanced at every disciple of the Thousand Een sect apologetically. Sect Master. A group of female cultivators said at the same time. Qian Yueling sighed slightly. I didn't think that our sex oath would be so effective. We don't ask to be born on the same day, month, and year, but we ask to die on the same day, month, and year. But why do I feel no sense of righteousness? Instead, I feel very bleak. Sect Master, you said that even if we die, we have to die with a sense of existence. Sisters, I'll go first. As soon as Qian Yueling finished speaking, a female cultivator suddenly said, and then a ray of light shot out from the spiritual magnetic cage. Inuo. Qian Yueling only had time to shout. The female cultivator had already turned into a ray of light and crashed into the fiendish python. There were two ways for cultivators to self-detonate. The first way was to self-detonate, which was extremely powerful and had a large area of effect. The higher one's cultivation base, the more powerful the self-detonate would be. The other way was to ignite one's primordial spirit and concentrate one's spiritual power into a single point before blasting it out like a drill. This method had extremely strong penetrative power, and a soul formation cultivator could easily pierce through a cultivation planet. The fiendish python's lips curled up slightly, and it didn't care about the ray of light at all. It raised its demonic claw and blocked the ray of light. With a light pinch, the female cultivator turned into ashes with a bang. Immediately afterward, a dozen or so rays of light shot out from the spiritual magnetic cage. Each of the female cultivators of the 1000 sect was more resolute than the last. They would rather die than live in dishonor, which was a stark contrast to Wu Chanda's cowardice. These damned cheese, they're not letting me eat. The huge man was enraged, and he waved his hand, dispersing the 3 rays of light. No! Qian Yueling let out a heart-wrenching cry as she watched her sisters sacrifice themselves for the sake of justice. Her voice drifted through the air, and it was filled with helplessness, unwillingness, and sorrow. Chapter 6:16. There were a total of 27 female cultivators from the 1000 sect participating in the Heavenly Peak Trade Fair. Excluding goddess Hong Yang, Huang Jiran, and Yi Feiyue, there were 24 official disciples. Sect leader Qian Yueling, the 4 princesses and snow fairy Murongzhu, as well as the remaining 18 female cultivators, all burned their primordial spirits and shot out in a dazzling streak of light without any hesitation. Qian Yueling, who was severely injured, could only watch helplessly as her sisters perished. Qian Yueling was drowned in endless sorrow. Mu Jiaojiao couldn't bear to watch. Her injuries were no less severe than Qian Yueling's. Otherwise, she would have already attacked. Only then did Mu Jiaojiao realize that the strange force that had been interfering with her spiritual sense was released by the black python's master. Mu Jiaojiao couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart as she looked at the fiendish python. She felt as if she was being crushed by a mountain and unable to move. The 18 female cultivators burned their life essence for their final attack, but it didn't cause much of a stir. The highest cultivation base among them was only at the soul formation intermediate stage. Most of them were only at the yuanying stage. They were nothing in the face of the fiendish python, the huge man, and the black python. Seeing this, 3 female cultivators didn't act stubbornly. Instead, they used the last of their strength to charge into the midst of the demon sect cultivators. They successfully killed 7 members of the demon sect. Zhu Bilian took a deep look at Qian Yueling, and also shot out without saying anything. Qian Yueling's heart was completely shattered. She knew that she couldn't stop them, so she could only look on with tears in her eyes. Zhu Bilian was naturally much more powerful than those female cultivators. The power that she could unleash after burning her primordial spirit was enough to destroy a void refinement intermediate stage cultivator. Zhu Bilian didn't hesitate. She immediately burned her primordial spirit and shot it toward the huge man. The fiendish python and the huge black python gave Zhu Bilian too much pressure. She felt that even if she burned her primordial spirit, she wouldn't be able to cause any harm to them. Only the huge dark demon was slightly weaker. The fiendish python looked at the female cultivators of the Thousand E'en sect, who were completely unafraid of death, and was a little annoyed. Just like that, the lambs that were about to be killed. The huge man's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the dazzling light shooting toward him. His huge demonic body suddenly trembled. This time, the giant man didn't dare to be careless. This brilliance was clearly much more powerful than the previous ones. Ha! The giant man suddenly punched out with his huge fist and let out a roar. Bang! With a muffled sound, the giant fist collided with the light. The giant man hurriedly retreated dozens of steps, desperately trying to support his body, but he could not stop the momentum of his retreat. The burly man felt as if his arm was about to break. With Zhu Bilian's strength, if she were to fight the nether demon burly man alone, she would be instantly killed. However, when she burned her primordial spirit, the giant man suffered internal injuries. The condensed spiritual chi almost burned the devil core in the giant man's body. Bah, damned human cultivator! The huge man managed to stop his retreat with great difficulty and cursed in shock. In the instant that Zhu Bilian's light of life disappeared, Qian Yueling's legs gave way, and she slumped to the ground in a daze. The other two princesses looked at each other and also rushed out. They knew that regardless of whether they launched a suicide attack or not, the final result would be the same. Instead of waiting for death, it was better to launch a desperate attack. Perhaps they could even fight for a chance of survival. However, the two princesses did not attack anyone, including the devil cultivators of the demon sect. They burned their primordial spirits to release beautiful fireworks of life, which shot out from the spiritual magnetic cage towards the wall of the nether formation. Boom, boom. There were two loud sounds, but nothing else. The light of life dissipated, leaving nothing behind. Their physical bodies and primordial spirits had all become the energy for the final attack. However, the nether formation did not even shake. It was as stable as Mount Tai. Humph! You want to shake the mini Sky 9 Serenities formation? Dream on. Even I can't touch this formation wall. A bunch of ants overestimating themselves. Idiot. The fiendish python looked at the two princesses' actions and snorted coldly, its eyes full of disdain. At this moment, Li Daocheng's attention was all on penetrating the formation wall. He was completely unaware of everything that was happening. His spiritual sense tentacles stretched forward with difficulty. Although it was extremely slow, it was still moving forward. Li Daocheng looked serious and frowned. This was the first time he encountered such a situation when he used his spiritual sense. Li Daocheng calculated the distance while extending his spiritual sense. The wall of the nether formation was much thicker than he had imagined. It was already more than 100 meters away. Finally, Li Daocheng's expression changed. A blue and gold light flashed in his eyes. His spiritual sense suddenly relaxed and seemed to penetrate the formation wall. Soon, Li Daocheng frowned again. Although his spiritual sense penetrated the formation wall, it did not enter the black prison. Li Daocheng's sea of consciousness shook. His spiritual sense touched a chaotic space, which was very dangerous. There were space cracks, space vortexes, and space distortion storms everywhere. Outside the formation wall was a space hell. Even divine transformation realm cultivators would be stirred into meat paste. Even void refinement realm cultivators would not be able to hold on for long. Fortunately, spiritual sense was an intangible object. The chaos of space would not affect spiritual sense as much as physical object. However, even though spiritual sense was intangible, it would still be severely disturbed. Li Daocheng pushed the strength of his spiritual sense to the maximum and accelerated beyond this chaotic space. Compared to passing through the formation wall, the speed of his spiritual sense was 100 times faster. However, compared to the speed in normal space, it was much slower. Under normal circumstances, spiritual sense could reach thousands of miles away in an instant. Li Daochong could now extend his spiritual sense to tens of thousands of miles away. For an ordinary cultivation planet, his spiritual sense could almost cover the entire planet. It was not weaker than GPS and was comparable to the speed of light. In this chaotic space, Li Daochong's spiritual sense could only extend to 1,000 meters per second. About 10 seconds later, Li Daochong sensed that the surrounding environment had stabilized slightly. The speed of his spiritual sense suddenly increased. A few seconds later, he was tens of thousands of miles away. Although there was no pressure, Li Daochong felt a hint of worry. Distance was the most troublesome thing. If this space was vast and boundless, Li Daochong would not be able to reach the other side even if he broke through layers and layers of obstacles. 100,000 miles was Li Daochong's limit. Any further and he would be powerless. Beyond this distance, Li Daochong would be powerless. He would definitely not be able to detect the Black Prison's location. Li Daochong was most worried that this nether formation would take them somewhere after it was activated. If they were not within the Black Prison's range, then they would be in big trouble. Just as Li Daochong was feeling uneasy, his spiritual sense suddenly opened up. Then, it came into contact with a layer of barrier, causing his spiritual sense to stop for a moment. Li Daochong exerted a little force and his spiritual sense penetrated it. Compared to the nether formation wall, this little obstruction was nothing. Pa! A crisp sound like a small spark of electricity rang out in Li Daochong's mind. Found it. The corner of Li Daochong's eye twitched. His anxious heart immediately calmed down. The nether formation did not take them anywhere else. It only brought them into the crevice of space within the Black Prison's range. Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly. He had already locked onto the coordinates. Li Daochong immediately transmitted the signal to Cherry Blossom Gauze. The two of them had the deepest soul imprint, so she immediately sensed it. The moment Cherry Blossom Gauze received the coordinates, she looked at Li Daochong in shock. She knew that Li Daochong's spiritual sense was powerful, but she did not expect it to be so powerful that it could even penetrate the mini-sky Nine Serenities formation. Cherry Blossom Gauze was originally Wu Ho of the Hades. How could she not know about this formation? This formation was created by the demon king Hades. As the name implied, the sky-covering finger was extremely large. It could fill up the entire sky. This was just the literal meaning. In reality, it could even deceive the heavens. It could deceive the heavens and evade the laws of the spiritual realm. The mini-sky Nine Serenities formation did indeed have such an effect. However, it took a lot of time to set it up. At the same time, it required a large number of Hades' blood soul stones, which were equivalent to high-grade spirit stones in the spiritual realm. When Li Daochong told Cherry Blossom Gauze that he would give it a try, she did not take it to heart. In her opinion, there was not much difference whether he tried or not. The result would be the same. It was impossible to penetrate the formation wall. However, Li Daochong actually did it. Cherry Blossom Gauze's beautiful eyes were filled with shock. The Thousand Insects female cultivator's life flower fireworks made the demon cultivators watching from afar feel deep respect for her. At least one of the three giants of the Black Prison had a backbone. Compared to the cowardly Earl's House and the traitor demon sect, the Black Prison had a backbone. The Thousand Insect was the only sect that did not disgrace the name of the three giants of the Black Prison. However, the three giants of the Black Prison had been completely annihilated. Although the demon sect had retained most of its strength, they could no longer be considered as humans. The Thousand Insect only had Qian Yueling, Mu Jiaojiao, Murongzhu, and Goddess Hong Yang left. The three of them were innocent foreign cultivators who had been implicated. Murongzhu was the only female cultivator of the Thousand Insect who did not attack. It was not that she was afraid of death. However, as Qian Yueling's last servant, Murongzhu had to fulfill her duty and quietly support the sect master. If not for this, Murong Zhu would have turned into a beam of spiritual light and charged towards the underworld demon. Why would she drag out an ignoble existence? Since her sisters had all died, she naturally would not live alone. The fiendish python lifted its hand slightly, and the spiritual magnetic cage protecting Qian, Yueling, and the others instantly shattered. A mere spiritual magnetic cage was only a little stronger than a paper cage in front of the underworld demon. Sect Master Qian, I see that your Thousand Een sect has a backbone. I will give you a chance to submit to the Hades. As long as you agree, I promise that I will not touch a single one of your disciples. Furthermore, I will give half of the Black Prison to the Thousand Een sect to control. What do you think? The fiendish python's dark red eyes burned faintly. Wuchanda was a coward who was afraid of death. It was useless for him to submit. The Thousand Een sect was a good choice. While speaking, the fiendish python slowly walked in front of Qian Yueling. Murong Zhu, who was supporting Qian Yueling, trembled slightly. The pressure from the underworld demon made her heart tremble. She was even afraid and wanted to submit to him. Fit. Qian Yueling coldly looked at the fiendish python. Without any warning, she spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva. Although the distance was so close, how could a mouthful of saliva hit a demon general like the fiendish python? Even if it was so close, it was impossible to hit it. However, the fiendish python did not realize what it was and raised his hand to block it. Slap! A mouthful of bloody saliva stuck to his wrist. It was extremely dirty. The fiendish python's anger instantly rose from his feet to his head. With a boom, the demon qi in his body exploded. Qian Yueling and Murong Zhu, who were the closest to him, were directly blown away by the violent demon qi. Mu Jiaojiao, Goddess Hong Yang, Huang Jiaran, and Yi Feiyue were the same. However, the fiendish python's demon qi was mainly poured into Qian Yueling and Murong Zhu. The two were directly blown several kilometers away. They were only a few hundred meters away from the group of cultivators who were watching from afar. Mu Jiaojiao, Goddess Hong Yang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiaran were also blown away. However, they were not hit by the core attack and only flew several hundred meters away. Goddess Hong Yang took out a magic weapon to protect the two girls. That was why they were not injured. The fiendish python was burning with anger. In fact, at that moment, he wanted to kill Qian Yueling on the spot. However, the explosion of demon qi was completely out of his control. Die. Everyone in the Thousand Een sect must die. The fiendish python's throat emitted a low and cold voice. The fiendish python disappeared and appeared in front of Goddess Hong Yang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiaran because they were the closest. Let's start with you three ants, the fiendish python said and stretched out his hand. The first one he grabbed was Yi Feiyue. Sister Yi! Huang Jiaran screamed. Yi Feiyue's eyes were filled with despair. The moment she was grabbed, she felt the world spin and her consciousness began to blur. Chapter 6:17. Yi Feiyue had never been so close to death. She didn't even have time to react before she fell into the abyss. Huang Jiaran wanted to help, but the devil qi emitted from Mingma was enough to kill her. If it weren't for her protective magic treasure, she wouldn't even be able to stand. Although Goddess Hong Yang could resist the devil qi, she suffered serious internal injuries and couldn't even protect herself. Sister Yi Feiyue! Huang Jiaran and Goddess Hong Yang screamed at the same time. The dark red fire in the fiendish python's eyes was terrifying. It didn't crush Yi Feiyue's neck with its claws, but licked its lips greedily. This female cultivator was very weak, but a mosquito's leg was still meat. It would be more cost-effective to swallow her than to kill her. The fiendish python opened its mouth and was about to swallow Yi Feiyue with her bones. Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion in the direction of the formation wall in the distance. A young man in a blue martial suit appeared in front of the fiendish python in a flash. It was Li Daochong, who had just given the coordinates to Cherry Blossom Gauze and realized something was wrong. The cultivators in the distance looked at each other, wondering what this hothead was going to do. The fiendish python glanced at Li Daochong with its mouth wide open. Its eyes were full of disdain, and it continued to bite Yi Feiyue. Bang! A bolt of lightning flashed by. The fiendish python's body shook, and it became numb for a moment. "I'll give you a chance. Put her down and take your people back to the Hades," Li Daochong said coldly. "What?" In the black prison, the devil cultivators and ghost cultivators who had fallen into a desperate situation and thought they were about to die were stunned when they heard this. Where did this guy come from? Even if he wants to die, he shouldn't provoke Mingma. Some people were angry. "It's over. We're all going to die. Mingma is going to kill us this time." Many cultivators still held on to their wishful thinking that it was impossible to kill all of them. Brotherly, Huang Jiran looked at Li Daochong and murmured. She never dreamed that she would see Li Daochong again. She thought she was going to die today. "Li Daoyu?" Goddess Hong Yang stood in a daze, looking at Li Daochong, who suddenly appeared in disbelief. Daochong. Yi Feiyue's face. Her pretty face was pale and she couldn't even breathe. At this moment, Qian Yueling arrived in front of Mu Jiaojiao with Murong Zhu's support. The two women looked at each other in confusion. Only Murong Zhu was a little surprised. She continued, "Sect Master, he is the one I told you about before. The strange young man who appeared on Snowstorm Star. He has a very powerful female cultivator bodyguard by his side. Her strength should not be below the 4 princesses. The people from the Devil sect were killed by his female bodyguard." Qian Yueling looked at Li Daochong with curiosity in her eyes. The fiendish python's eyes twitched when it was attacked by the lightning. It quickly recovered and closed its mouth. Then, it turned to Li Daochong and laughed. "Ha ha ha, kid, I can understand you trying to be a hero. But if you try to be a hero, you're an idiot." Whoosh! Li Daochong suddenly disappeared from where he stood. The fiendish python's expression changed. The next moment, the female cultivator in its hand disappeared. More than 10 meters away, Li Daochong held Yi Feiyue. He put one hand on her back and sent a stream of pure spirit energy into her body. Soon Yi Feiyue regained her consciousness and looked at Li Daochong. "You're really here." Li Daochong nodded and turned to Goddess Hong Yang. He moved his hand and sent a stream of spirit energy into her body. Goddess Hong Yang's body shook. She felt the qi and blood in her body were stirred. Puff! She spat out a mouthful of blood and instantly felt much better. Her internal injuries were almost healed. Li Daochong then said, "Hong Yang, take Feiyuan Jiran and stand further away." Fairy Hong Yang didn't say much and nodded slightly. She knew that a battle like this wasn't something she could interfere in. Li Daochong gave Goddess Hong Yang a defensive magic weapon that was close to the immortal level. It was plundered from 13 Specter. In fact, Li Daochong plundered a lot of strange magic weapons on 13 Specter, but they were useless to him. It would be a pity to throw them away. Selling them would be a waste of time. So, he kept them. At the critical moment, they were very useful. This defensive magic weapon was shaped like an ancient bell. It was only the size of a palm in its normal state. When activated, it could grow to the size of a small house and could cover more than 10 people. It was impossible for this thing to defend against Ming Mo's attack. Even void refinement cultivators couldn't block it. However, it was more than enough to defend against the aftermath of a battle. It could even block the aftermath of a battle between body integration cultivators. Goddess Hong Yang pulled Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran up and flew hundreds of meters away. She immediately summoned the ancient bell to protect them. "Senior Hong Yang, can Big Brother Li defeat Ming Mo?" Huang Jiran asked worriedly. "I don't know." Goddess Hong Yang shook her head. She knew that Li Daochong was powerful, but compared to Ming Mo, he was still worlds apart. But now, she had no choice but to believe in Li Daochong. Yi Feiyue stared at Li Daochong's figure in a daze and pursed her lips. This guy was much stronger than the last time she saw him. She couldn't see through Li Daochong at all. Could he defeat Ming Mo like this? The fiendish python didn't stop goddess Hong Yang from taking Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiaran away. Its eyes were fixed on Li Daochong. This person could save people from its hands, and the fiendish python didn't react at all. Even the fiendish python felt inferior to the speed of that instant. It wasn't a speed that a human could have. Li Daochong's speed was already very fast when he used the 1,000-sound escape on 13 Specter. When he was chased by Wen Mayan on Blizzard Planet, his speed was even faster. Li Daochong hadn't used the 1,000-sound escape since his cultivation skyrocketed. Just now was the first time. Li Daochong's speed had reached an unimaginable level when he used the 1,000-sound escape, which was even faster than a combination stage-old demon. No matter how strong the fiendish python was, it was only a demon general, which was far from a demon king. It couldn't catch Li Daochong's movement in a surprise attack, so he could save Yi Feiyue easily. This scene shocked the cultivators who saw it from afar. Their complaints about Li Daochong infuriating Ming Mo stopped abruptly. Did you see that guy's movement clearly? No, it's like teleportation. It must be some kind of extremely powerful spatial magic treasure. Is it a spatial magic treasure of the upper grade immortal level? Puppet Star exulted, we're really old. We don't have any spirit left. Standing in front of the crowd, an old man with a face as pale as a ghost suddenly sighed and said, Ghost Elder, we're not only old, but we've also become cowards. A burly middle-aged man who was more than 2 meters tall smiled awkwardly. Yeah, one of the 3 sect masters of Black Prison died, one betrayed us, and one was seriously injured. The 3 of us have the highest cultivation, but we're not even as good as a kid. Forefather Chi Kue shook his head and mocked himself. Just as the 3 old cultivators of Black Prison were reflecting on themselves, several demon sect cultivators suddenly flew over. The leader was the last remaining Hall Master of the demon sect, Hall Master Kuanqing of the Flame Demon sect. Kuanqing's face was gloomy as he hovered in front of the crowd. Who killed this exalted's dual cultivation partner, Jade Lotus Flower? Come out, and this exalted can leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, I'll pull out your tendons and skin you alive. Chapter 6:18. When Kuanqing spoke, his gaze was actually fixed on Silver Bottle, who was standing at the back of the crowd. When Jade Lotus Flower was killed, Kuanqing knew about it, but he was entangled and couldn't get away to save Jade Lotus Flower. Kuanqing moved his hand, and a human figure that was more than 10 meters tall appeared. It was Jade Lotus Flower. When Silver Bottle saw the figure, she bit her lower lip and her heart skipped a beat. It was actually the female cultivator that she had killed. Silver Bottle was still a little afraid of facing a Void Refinement Realm cultivator. She would be lying if she said that she wasn't afraid. Cherry Blossom Gauze, who was hiding at the back of the crowd and secretly setting up the space teleportation array, had a serious expression on her face. She knew that Silver Bottle was in danger. However, Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't get away at this moment. If she stopped, she would have to start again. Most importantly, she might miss the coordinates. The coordinates that Li Daochong gave her had to be connected at all times. Once she left Cherry Blossom Gauze, she wouldn't be able to find her again. You're not coming out? Kuanqing's expression was cold. Someone dared to kill his dual cultivation partner. That was bad. Now, the demon sect would become the real ruler of the Black Prison. If he didn't show some deterrence, how could he convince the masses in the future? Kuanqing continued, if you don't come out, I'll kill one person every 3 breaths. If you want to blame someone, blame that coward who killed my dual cultivation partner. All the cultivators present were shocked. Time's up. After 3 breaths, Kuanqing said coldly. He stretched out his hand and a powerful suction force was released. A female cultivator in red who was fighting at the front of the crowd was instantly sucked over by the suction force and fell into Kuanqing's hand. Wait a minute. Seeing this, Silver Bottle screamed, but it was too late. Boom! A ball of flames suddenly rose and instantly engulfed the female cultivator in red. A miserable scream came from the flames. The pain of being burned was the highest level of pain, and the cold demon green fire released by flame demon Kuanqing could directly penetrate the physical body and burn the primordial spirit and sea of consciousness. Although the scream was miserable, it did not last for too long. After a few seconds it disappeared. The flame gradually dissipated, leaving nothing behind. The female cultivator had been burned into nothingness. Yinping glared at Kuanqing. You! Kuanqing looked at the silver bottle with a cold smile on his face. However, there was a hint of greed in his eyes. Compared to the seductive charm of Jade Lotus, this girl exuded a youthful and pleasant aura. Do you have something to say? Kuanqing looked down at the silver bottle and asked knowingly. At this moment, the fiendish cultivators and ghostly cultivators who were standing around the silver bottle automatically distanced themselves from it. All of them were wise to save their own skin. If the matter did not concern them, they would let it slide. None of them wanted to be the first to stand out. Among the remaining 200,000 cultivators, there was no lack of experts. There were still a dozen or so who were more powerful than Kuanqing. But they all kept silent. This matter had nothing to do with them. Naturally, there was no need to offend Kuanqing, which had become the watchdog of the Hades, for a strange girl. I killed her. Yinping took a deep breath and said, It's too late. If you had stood out at the first moment, I could have left your corpse intact. Now I can only skin you and pull out your tendons. However, if you are willing to give me your soul seal and become my slave, I can spare your life. Kuanqing looked at the silver bottle greedily. Jade Lotus was dead. No matter what he did, she could not come back to life. It was not bad to find a well-behaved substitute. Don't even think about it. Yinping blurted out. Without even thinking about it, her delicate little face revealed a rare look of anger. It's not up to you. Kuanqing smiled gloomily. With that, Kuanqing turned into a flame and flew over with a swoosh. He landed in front of the silver bottle. The surrounding cultivators only felt a burning sensation on their faces. A wave of heat directly hit their primordial spirit. Their skin felt as if it was about to be ignited. They had no choice but to retreat further away. The densely packed cultivators who had gathered together just now all scattered, leaving a wide open space. Only Yinping and Kuanqing were left. The Dharma robe on Yinping's body blocked the flame aura emitted from Kuanqing's body. However, the Dharma robe could not block the pressure. The little girl's body trembled slightly. Kuanqing didn't make a move against the silver bottle. The flames on his body disappeared as soon as they landed. Kuanqing looked at Yinping as if he was admiring a beautiful work of art. Suddenly, he raised his hand to touch Yinping's hair. Yinping could not move at this time under the pressure. She could only say angrily, "Don't touch me." Kuanqing raised his hand and paused for a moment. He looked up and laughed, "Ha ha ha, if you don't let me touch you, I will touch you. From now on, in the Black Prison, the demon sect is the king. Those who obey me will prosper and those who oppose me will die. Little girl, as long as you hand over the soul seal, I will not treat you unfairly. You killed my dual cultivation partner. Either you pay with your life or take my place. You have no choice." Yinping bit her lower lip so hard that a trace of blood seeped out of her lip. She glared at Kuanqing. "No choice? I'd like to see how I have no choice." A bone-chilling voice suddenly sounded. No one could perceive where the voice came from. Kuanqing's face changed. He turned around, thinking that the voice came from behind him. However, there was nothing behind him. When Kuanqing turned around, he was faced with a calm face. However, the pair of dark eyes on the face radiated a strong murderous intent. Young master. Yinping was at a loss. There was guilt in her voice. She felt that she was very useless, like a burden. The young master still had to take care of her in such a situation. Hearing the voice, Li Daochong turned to Yinping. The murderous intent in his eyes immediately disappeared. When he looked at Yinping, his eyes were full of gentleness. There was a faint smile on his indifferent face as he nodded slightly. When Li Daochong looked at Kuanqing again, the murderous intent in his eyes was even stronger. He said in a cold tone, "If you kill yourself, you will die. Otherwise, I will pull out your tendons and skin you alive. Then, I will grind your bones and scatter your ashes." As soon as these words came out, many cultivators were stunned for a moment. They all looked at Li Daochong as if they were looking at an idiot. This kid, does he think he can be so arrogant just because he has some kind of powerful space magic treasure? After shouting at the Nether Demon, he is now shouting at the demon sect. Is this guy here to show off his eloquence? What's the use of having speed? This is a sealed space. Can he escape? The demonic cultivators and ghost cultivators in the Black Prison were worried and angry about Li Daochong's continuous provocation of the Nether Demon and the Demon Sect. They were afraid that they would be implicated. The Nether Demon and the Demon Sect might not want to kill them all. Because of this kid, they might very well be buried together. In their opinion, this kid who suddenly appeared couldn't pose any threat to the Nether Demon and the Demon Sect. He wouldn't even cause a ripple. Kuanqing looked at Li Daochong as if he was looking at an idiot. Flames burst out from his body as he said in a deep voice, "You're just an ant. Don't you know anything? How can a mantis stop a chariot? If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." With that, Kuanqing grabbed Li Daochong with his burning hand. Young master. No matter how powerful Li Daochong was, as long as there was a trace of threat from him, Yinping would be extremely nervous. Sigh, there's nothing I can do about it at such a young age. If I had stayed here obediently, I might have had a chance of survival. Now I'm dead for sure. Chapter 619. Kuanqing punched towards Li Daochong's face with his flaming arm, creating a swirling wave of flames. At that moment, the entire enclosed space was filled with a scorching heat wave, melting the ground. Everyone looked at Li Daochong as if they were looking at a dead man. Kuanqing's punch was imbued with powerful demonic qi, smashing towards Li Daochong like a meteor. Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly, but he didn't move at all, nor did he have any intention to attack. Boom! The punch landed squarely on Li Daochong's face. Many cultivators turned their heads away, unable to bear to watch. Those who were still watching unconsciously shrunk their necks, revealing an expression of not being able to look straight. The demonic flames instantly engulfed Li Daochong. "Young master!" Yinping screamed. "Daochong!" Yi Feiyue's body shook. "Big brother Li!" Huang Jiran called out in despair. Fairy Hongyang's pretty eyes widened as she stared at the ball of flame. Her gaze was filled with regret. "Sigh, what a tragic death!" A cultivator in the crowd sighed. "This is what happens when you overestimate yourself." Someone else added. Buzz, 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 the demonic flames burned fiercely. Something's not right." Soon, a cultivator voiced out suspiciously. "What's not right?" Kuanqing's punch was so powerful, but why didn't that young man fly away? Instead, he only burned on the spot. Could it be that Kuanqing didn't use his full strength and only wanted to burn him to death? As soon as these words were said, the eyes of some of the stronger cultivators twitched. Kuanqing, the one who started it, felt his arm go numb the moment his fist landed on Li Daochong's face, then he lost all feeling. Kuanqing stared at Li Daochong in disbelief, who was still smiling amidst the demonic flames. "No, that's impossible." Kuanqing's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he stuttered. A few seconds later, the demonic flames gradually subsided. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators discovered that Li Daochong was still standing with Kuanqing's fist pressed against his face. However, Li Daochong's head didn't even move 1 nanometer. It was as if a mosquito had hit him. Not only that, the demonic fire didn't cause any harm to Li Daochong at all. Even the ordinary cloth on his body didn't burn a single thread. As long as it was a cultivator who had stayed in the black prison for a period of time, they would know that Kuanqing's devilish fire was enough to burn a sky-profound grade magic treasure to ashes. The crowd of cultivators watched this scene with their mouths agape. The entire place was silent. The demonic fire was disappearing faster and faster. After 2 or 3 breaths, it was completely extinguished. As the one who was hit, Li Daochong stood with his hands behind his back, unharmed. Kuanqing's arm suddenly lost its support and drooped down. Then, the skin on his arm shattered inch by inch. Blood gushed out and the bones inside turned into powder. Li Daochong silently looked at Kuanqing. He raised his hand and pointed a finger at the latter's forehead. Leaving your corpse intact was already my greatest mercy. Unfortunately, you didn't want it. Kuanqing looked at Li Daochong in fear. He finally realized what kind of terrifying existence he was facing. Kuanqing wanted to escape, but he couldn't control the demonic qi in his body. His demonized primordial spirit was imprisoned and couldn't even leave his body. Don't kill me, Kuanqing begged. Li Daochong didn't seem to hear him. But his finger lightly flicked. Zap, zap. A bolt of lightning flashed. Kuanqing was sent flying like a cannonball, as if he had been hit by an ancient beast. With a bang, he hit the wall of the dark matrix and bounced to the ground again. He sank a few meters into the ground, and then bounced up again and landed on the edge of the pit. Kuanqing rolled on the ground in pain, like a snake that had been splashed with sulfuric acid. The pain made him want to scream, but he couldn't make any sound. Kuanqing's skin peeled off from his body little by little and turned into a mass of blood. Sometimes, an electric current flowed through Kuanqing's body. Every time it flowed, it would make Kuanqing's body convulse, and there would be extremely small explosions on the surface. This process took much longer than expected. When everyone came to their senses and looked at Li Daochong, he was no longer in the same place. He had returned to the center of the dark matrix space. Bang, bang, bang. Just as all the cultivators were flabbergasted, they heard the sound of an explosion. The few Devil Sect cultivators who came with Kuanqing self-detonated without any warning, turning into a rain of blood that fell from the sky. They died just like that. When the conflict between Li Daochong and Kuanqing happened, the fiendish python just floated in the air and watched. He thought that Kuanqing was enough to deal with Li Daochong. However, Kuanqing didn't even cause a ripple. Li Daochong floated in the air. No longer bound by any restrictions, the spiritual qi on his body rose rapidly. From the early stage of Yuanying to the Huashan realm. This kind of leap was nothing for other practitioners. Huashan realm practitioners were not rare in the Black Prison. However, the majestic spiritual qi released by Li Daochong made even void refinement cultivators feel a strong sense of oppression, as if they were facing a body integration stage-old demon. The exploding spiritual qi instantly filled the entire enclosed space of the dark matrix space. The strong death qi just now was suppressed. Li Daochong slowly turned to look at Qi Kuang while releasing spiritual qi. He asked softly, "Did you send Wen Mayan to Blizzard Star?" The sudden question stunned Qi Kuang at first, but he quickly reacted. The way he looked at Li Daochong instantly changed. "You know Wen Mayan? Where is he?" Qi Kuang narrowed his eyes. "Dead." Li Daochong spat out 2 words indifferently. "How did he die?" Qi Kuang's expression changed. "I killed him." Li Daochong understated. "What?" Qi Kuang was shocked. He didn't believe it, but he immediately realized that this young man had such strength. No matter how strong Wen Mayan was, he couldn't be stronger than Kuanqing. You know, the biggest mistake of your demon sect is to provoke me. Li Daochong looked calm. He glanced at Yin Ping and the others in the distance, and the killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. Ha ha, do you think you can be arrogant after killing Kuanqing in seconds? Qi Kuang looked up and laughed. Suddenly, he stopped laughing and looked at Li Daochong gloomily. I can also do that. While speaking, Qi Kuang's devil body gradually grew bigger, and devil qi gushed out. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, a ray of Tsang ink flashed by. The fire in the eyes of the fiendish python jumped violently. Qi Kuang's ferocious face didn't have time to express his anger. His eyes widened, and he looked at Li Daochong incredulously. A bloodline appeared between Qi Kuang's eyebrows. This pretentious devil lord, who wanted to be the top master and the only ruler of the Black Prison, never dreamed that he would be killed at the moment when his wish was about to be realized. Qi Kuang's eyes, which were growing farther and farther apart, were filled with astonishment. He couldn't believe that all this was real. Qi Kuang's body was not only separated, but also his primordial spirit. When this knife split the body, Qi Kuang's primordial spirit was directly blown out of his body. The thunder force completely tore the primordial spirit into pieces, leaving no trace. The separated body, from the inside out, exploded and turned into a rain of blood falling on the ground. Qi Kuang of the demon sect died. In the distance, a group of practitioners of the Black Prison looked at this scene with their mouths wide open. It was amazing enough to kill Kuanqing in seconds, but it was too amazing to kill Qi Kuang in seconds. Ancestor Tianfeng was a practitioner of the combination realm, but he might not be able to kill Qi Kuang in seconds. After all, a practitioner of the late stage of Voiding Realm had many life-saving trump cards and devil skills. How could it be so easy to kill him? However, the impossible happened so suddenly, without any warning. Chapter 620. All the Black Prison cultivators who ridiculed Li Daochong in their hearts, and even resented him for angering the demon sect. At this moment, their mouths subconsciously opened wide, and they stared at the cyan figure in the void. The whole place was silent. Everyone's heart was surging, but their minds were blank. Who was the idiot? It was clear at a glance. The remnants of the demon sect, watching their sect leader being slaughtered like a dog, were all stunned on the spot, with a confused face, and complained in their hearts. No, shouldn't the demon sect be the one to unify the Black Prison with the help of Hades? In the blink of an eye, the invincible demon lord in their hearts was killed like this? The disciples of the devil sect were unable to accept such a sudden change. Just before the demon sect's disciples calmed down, the brilliance of Tsang ink whistled up, flashing wantonly in the void with the power of thunder. In a few breaths of time, as long as the demon sect's cultivators existed in this enclosed space, they were all killed. They didn't even have the strength to resist, disappearing above the void like ants. The demon sect destroyed. Li Daochong didn't move at all, just suspended there, as quiet as a statue. With a swoosh, Tsang ink, who had completed the task, flew back to Li Daochong's side, like an obedient shepherd dog, snuggling up to its master. But the light of the blade was shining with cold light, vigilant of the surroundings. As long as it found any threat, it would immediately turn into a fierce dog and rush up to bite at all costs. Li Daochong slaughtered the demon sect, and the fiendish python didn't mean to stop him. The demon sect was just a vicious dog accepted by Hades. There was only one function, which was to release it to bite people when needed. If it couldn't even bite people to death, such a vicious dog was useless. Lackeys could be found anywhere. Only the vicious dog shared the master's worries. There was no reason for the master to save the vicious dog. The fiendish python didn't care about the life and death of the demon sect at all. From the moment Li Daochong killed Kuanqing, the demon general Hades knew that the vicious dog of the demon sect couldn't beat him. But the fiendish python thought that it could play some role, and consume this human cultivator who seemed to come out of a crack in the stone. Who knew that the vicious dog didn't even hurt a hair, let alone consume it. This was just a show of crushing an ant to death. In terms of the number of people, the fiendish python only had the giant man and his dark pet, the black python. Although there were only 2 demons and a demon general Hades demon beast, the sense of oppression in the entire enclosed space, the demon sect, the entire space did not weaken. The demonic sect was just an extra, so it didn't make much of a difference whether they existed or not. After Li Daochong released his spirit qi, the death qi in the enclosed space was greatly weakened. The cultivators felt a lot more comfortable. Even though they were ghost cultivators and devil cultivators, they were still living people. When they were invaded by the real death qi, they still couldn't bear it. Some ghost cultivators even showed signs of turning into ghosts, and the inner demons of the devil cultivators were also recklessly growing. If Li Daochong had not controlled the death aura in time, half of the 200,000 devil cultivators and ghost cultivators would have lost their mind. In the distance, Qian Yueling's eyes were filled with shock. Qian Yueling had always been extremely arrogant. In the entire black prison, she might not be the strongest, but in terms of talent, she was definitely a heaven-defying existence. However, at this moment, Qian Yueling realized that she was like a frog in a well. She thought she was great because she could only see the insignificant round sky above the well. Mu Jiaojiao was equally shocked, but her emotions weren't as strong as the others. Back in the Kuan Empire, she had seen too many geniuses. The person in front of her was indeed very strong, but the top geniuses in the cultivation world were not much weaker than him. Mu Jiaojiao was not surprised by Li Daochong's strength, but by the fact that she had never seen this person before. Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense was very strong, and she had an eidetic memory. She would never forget anyone she met just by looking at them. Like a disc, her memories were deeply engraved on it. When she wanted to flip through it, the complete information would fall out in an instant. However, she had no impression of this person at all. Within the Kuan Empire, Mu Jiaojiao knew of anyone with a little bit of fame. Could it be that he wasn't from the Kuan Empire? Was he from the other 2 cultivation world empires? Mu Jiaojiao's eyes were filled with curiosity as she looked at Li Daochong. Compared to the Kuan Empire, Mu Jiaojiao knew very little about the other 2 major cultivation empires, the Qianyun Empire and the Tai Qing Empire. These 2 cultivation world empires had focused all their efforts on resisting the Hades for the past 100 years, so the number of cultivators who came to the Black Prison was much less than the Kuan Empire. Because the Kuan Empire had the Shenghua Federation as a natural barrier, the pressure from the Hades was much less than the other 2 cultivation world empires. Murongzhu, who was supporting Qian Yueling, recalled the situation at the Blizzard Planet's Snowfield Bar more than 10 days ago. She finally understood why that powerful female cultivator was so obedient to this young man. Previously, Murongzhu had always thought that this person was a descendant of a powerful family in the Kuan Empire, and that the female cultivator was just a bodyguard arranged by the family. It turned out that this person did not need any protection at all. With his strength, he could do whatever he wanted in the Black Prison. Anyone who provoked him would be courting death. That female cultivator was not a bodyguard, perhaps a maid would be more appropriate. Zhu, are you sure he's the young man who appeared at the Blizzard Planet more than 10 days ago? Mu Jiaojiao asked curiously. Divine Sense Princess, I'm sure. Murongzhu immediately replied. Mu Jiaojiao nodded slightly, then continued, Your friend seems to know him. I'm curious about his background. I'll go ask. Let's go together. Mu Jiaojiao's face was pale as she clutched her chest. Her internal injuries were very uncomfortable, and if she was exposed to this sealed space in the Hades, her injuries would only worsen. Other than being curious about Li Daocheng's background, Mu Jiaojiao also wanted to enter the ancient bell. Murongzhu nodded, then flew up with Qian Yueling's help, and Mu Jiaojiao followed closely behind. The three women quickly landed in front of the ancient bell held up by Goddess Hongyang. Goddess Hongyang immediately opened the ancient bell to let them in. "Hongyang, you know that person?" Murongzhu did not hide her intentions and asked directly. Goddess Hongyang did not feel relieved after Li Daocheng killed a few demon cultivators. Instead, she looked even more nervous, because the next battle would determine everyone's fate. Hongyang glanced at Murongzhu, then nodded. "I know him." "You know his background?" Murongzhu continued to ask. Goddess Hongyang hesitated for a moment before replying, "I have a rough idea." "Which of the three empires is he from? What's his title?" Murongzhu asked curiously. "Big Brother Li is a cultivator born and raised in our Shenghua Federation." Huang Jiran was a little unconvinced by Murongzhu's words, and couldn't help but interrupt. "What?" Qian Yueling, Murongzhu, and Mu Jiaojiao all spoke at the same time, and looked at Huang Jiran in shock. "Hongyang, is what this girl said true?" Murongzhu's face was filled with disbelief as she looked at Fairy Hongyang. Hongyang didn't know why, but a sense of pride welled up in her heart, and she unconsciously smiled. "These two girls are his classmates. If you want to know something, it's more efficient to ask them than me." "P classmates? H from the Shenghua Federation?" Murongzhu stuttered as she looked at Huang Jiran and Yi Feiyue with suspicion in her eyes. Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao looked at each other in disbelief. They looked at Li Daocheng outside, then at Huang Jiran and Yi Feiyue. No matter what, they couldn't connect these two girls to the young man outside who killed the demon master with a single slash. These two girls, one in the Foundation establishment stage, and the other in the Jin Dan stage, were so weak that they weren't even worth mentioning. How could they be the classmates of that godlike young man outside? This didn't make any F***king sense. How could a dragon mix with an earthworm? The two female leaders of the Thousand Yin sect were dumbfounded. After listening to Goddess Hongyang, Huang Jiran, and Yi Feiyue's simple narration, the three women from the Thousand Yin sect felt even more incredulous. Li Daocheng was from the Shenghua Federation's fourth ring star, a fourth-class cultivation planet called Blue Bay Star. The son of the head of the Li family. His brain wasn't very bright since he was young, and his spirit meridians had dried up. He was often mocked and bullied both inside and outside the family. 2.5 years ago, he failed to commit suicide by jumping off a building. Then, he suddenly became enlightened and didn't seem to be a fool anymore. His spirit meridians recovered for some reason, and his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. He obtained second place in the Fourth Ring Star's 100 Schools joint examination, and then disappeared for a while. 3 months later, he reported to North Star University and arrived at 13 Specter a week later. He led the remaining combat cultivators of Hidden Demon City to successfully stop the invasion of Rakshasa State and killed Wu Ho, becoming famous in one battle. His cultivation was estimated to be at the early stage of soul formation, and he was called Rado Shinji by the cultivators of the Federation. After the defense of Hidden Demon City, he disappeared again. After listening to Hongyang and the other two girls' narration, Mu Jiaojiao immediately pulled out all the information she had copied from the spiritual net recently. She extracted all the bits and pieces about Li Daocheng, and through her own combination selection, she finally came up with this simple process. This was all that Mu Jiaojiao could find. There was very little information about Li Daocheng. If it weren't for Goddess Hongyang, Mu Jiaojiao wouldn't have connected Li Daocheng with Rado Shinji, no matter how powerful her divine sense was and how smart she was. The Shenghua Federation has produced a true dragon this time. Mu Jiaojiao stared at Li Daocheng outside the ancient bell and sighed in admiration. In the void, Li Daocheng's spirit energy was still rising, and it was mixed with thunder energy. The death chi in the enclosed space was constantly suppressed. The fiendish python looked at Li Daochong leisurely, without any intention to attack. He stretched out his hand, and the giant black python floating beside him quickly shrank to 2 meters long and docilely coiled around the fiendish python's arm. The snake's head climbed to the fiendish python's shoulder, and the snake's tongue quickly flicked in and out. Since Li Daochong killed Kuanqing, the fiendish python had the idea of killing with a borrowed knife. The fiendish python had long wanted to kill the nether demon giant, but he couldn't do it. Originally, the fiendish python thought that ancestor Tianfeng could kill Fei Lian, Black Lotus, and the giant, but the old man only killed 2. Facing so much food in front of him, the fiendish python didn't think it was too much. He didn't need anyone to share with him. Therefore, the giant must die. The man in front of him had the best cultivation. Even if he couldn't defeat the giant, the fiendish python would secretly help him. No expression could be seen on the fiendish python's pale face. Only a flicker of emotion could be seen in its burning red pupils. "Bull, he's yours," the fiendish python said indifferently. The giant licked his lips, revealing a smirk. The fiendish python gave such a big fish to him, which was exactly what he wanted. The giant was from the Oxhead clan of the Hades. Because he was a mixed blood, he was not a pure Oxhead, but he perfectly inherited all the characteristics of the Oxhead and carried forward them. The Oxhead clan didn't have a high status in the Hades, and they couldn't reach the level of the Nether Demon, but the giant successfully became a Nether Demon. "Thank you, Lord Fiendish Python." Although Bull didn't like the Fiendish Python, the latter's status was above his, so he still had to show the necessary courtesy. Hey! When the bull-like man looked at Li Daochong, he could not help but lick his lips greedily with his long tongue. A sinister smile appeared on his face, and he rubbed his hands together. He looked like a big man looking at a weak woman in the wild. Chapter 6:21. Li Daochong looked at the bull-like man who was rubbing his palms. His face was expressionless, but killing intent flashed in his eyes. Swoosh. Li Daochong didn't say a word and had already made his move. He disappeared on the spot, and when he reappeared, he was already 1 meter away from the bull-like man. The bull-like man let out a soft sound of surprise, and without hesitation, he punched out with his giant fist. The bull-like race of Hades was born with superhuman strength. Their comprehensive combat power might not be very strong. However, they were extremely strong and their skin was thick. Ordinary attacks were useless against them, and magic treasures below the immortal level could only tickle them. Seeing Li Daochong daring to get within 3 meters of the bull-like man, the fiendish python showed a sympathetic expression. Even the fiendish python didn't dare to fight with the bull-like man in close combat. That would be using one's weakness to attack the bull-like man's strength. It wasn't worth it. The cultivators of Black Prison who were watching the fight were also surprised. They didn't understand Li Daochong's choice. The characteristics of all kinds of undead creatures in Hades were classified on the spiritual net. Therefore, everyone knew that the Nether Demon's strongest side was close combat. No matter how much a human cultivator cultivated, he couldn't make up for the weakness of his innate body. The spiritual body was indeed much stronger than an ordinary body, but it was still nothing compared to the Nether Demon's body. It was not even worth mentioning in front of a grand wizard. It was like the difference between an iron puppet and a round wooden puppet. You don't want to use your saber and choose close combat? Isn't that a bit too arrogant? Ghost Elder looked at the void in the distance, and said with a puzzled expression. Patriarch Qi Kuei and Exalted Kuei Xing also had a suspicious expression. The 3 of them were the strongest ghost cultivators at the scene. They were all in the late stage of void refinement, which was comparable to the 3 leaders of the Black Prison. However, their combat power was slightly weaker. Now that Qi Kuang and Wu Chanda had died, Qian Yueling was seriously injured, and Patriarch Tianfeng's life and death were unknown, the three of them naturally became the strongest representatives of the Black Prison. Their several hundred years of lifespan had given them a wealth of combat experience. At this moment, seeing that Li Daochong actually chose to engage in close combat, they all looked down on Li Daochong. He felt that although Li Daochong was strong, his combat experience was too lacking. This move of his was too weak. In the void, the giant man threw a punch at Li Daochong, and the fist wind brought about a violent whirlwind, as if it wanted to tear the surrounding space apart. The weakest devil cultivator in the Hades realm was comparable to an early-stage void refinement realm cultivator. As for the burly man, he had been in the void refinement realm for 1,000 years and had just absorbed many human souls, so his strength had already reached the peak of the void refinement realm. He was only one step away from becoming a devilish general, and with his devilish body, he was able to battle body integration cultivators. In fact, for old ancestor Tianfeng to be able to kill 2 of the 3 devils, it was sufficient to show his tyrannical strength. If he were an ordinary early body integration cultivator, he would have already been taken down by the 3 devilish beings. "Trying to act tough in front of me? Die!" the giant man roared. The corners of Li Daochong's mouth curled up. He didn't seem to have much power as he simply raised his hand and threw out a punch. However, a few inconspicuous electric currents flashed across his arm. Boom! The sky was completely shaken. The 2 fists, one big and one small, collided head-on. In an instant, a shock wave exploded and swept through the entire sealed space. The cultivators who were watching the battle from afar were blown away again. If it wasn't for Li Daochong's spirit chi counteracting most of the death aura, these cultivators would have been seriously injured again, and countless of them would have died. The giant man originally thought that his punch would be able to send the ant in front of him flying. Who knew that his giant fist felt an incomparably powerful force? They were actually evenly matched? The giant man stared at Li Daochong with a pair of copper gongs. His eyes were filled with disbelief. He was actually able to fight an ant to a draw? Damn it! The giant man cursed under his breath as he threw out another punch. Li Daochong also threw out a punch calmly. Bang, 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 there were continuous muffled sounds in the void, like muffled thunder, shaking the sealed space slightly. Every time they hit, a powerful shock wave would explode. Fortunately, after the first time, all the cultivators worked together to support the barrier, so they were not blown away again and again. Goddess Hong Yang and the other women stayed in the ancient bell given by Li Daochong. They were as still as a mountain, so they couldn't feel the shockwave at all. The ancient bell's defensive power was enough to completely resist the impact. Damn it, bah, impossible! The giant man threw out dozens of punches in a row and spat, cursing. The fiendish python suspended in the void far away looked at the battle gloomily. The small black python was obediently coiled on the fiendish python's arm. The fiendish python gently stroked the snake's head, thinking. The spirit chi in Li Daochong's body was constantly pouring out. After dozens of punches from the giant man, he didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he became more and more excited and energetic. Li Daochong hadn't used 9 cracks wounding fist in actual combat for a long time. At this time, he had a new understanding of it. Li Daochong looked at the giant man with a faint smile. He had been warming up before, so he didn't hit hard at all. Li Daochong naturally wouldn't miss such a good sparring partner. It didn't matter even if he consumed some spirit chi and physical strength. As long as he killed the giant man, all the consumption would be made up, and Li Daochong still had a magic pill. "Are you done?" Li Daochong suddenly asked. "Ant, how dare you talk to me in such a tone? Unforgivable!" The giant man roared, and his body suddenly swelled. Bull demon body. 2 horns grew out of the giant man's forehead, and his huge body became even bigger. A human-shaped bull demon more than 10 meters tall appeared in front of Li Daochong, and the whole process was completed in the blink of an eye. Li Daochong's eyes flashed, and he suddenly rushed to the bull demon like a flash of lightning. Kaboom! Accompanied by the sound of thunder, Li Daochong punched the bull demon's chest. His huge body seemed to have been hit by a mountain, and fell to the ground like a meteor. Boom! A huge crater over 100 meters in diameter was smashed into the ground. Although the power of this attack was huge, and the effects were indeed so, the bull demon's body didn't suffer any substantial damage. The bull demon only felt a little pain, so he immediately bounced back after smashing into the ground, ready to counterattack. But just as the bull demon moved, Li Daochong appeared in front of him, and a fist came smashing at him. Damn it! The bull demon cursed out of reflex. Boom! The fist met his face, and half of it was instantly deformed. His huge body was sent flying, and he spun a dozen times in the air before falling to the ground with a thump. The bull demon didn't believe it, and quickly got up. But just as he stood up, Li Daochong's fist met him once again, and the bull demon didn't have any time to react. Thump, thump. The bull demon's ox nose was hit by the fist, and with a thump, he fell to the ground on his back. He sank directly into the ground. The power of this punch was far less powerful than the previous ones, but the injury to the bull demon was much more serious. The bull demon only felt his body go numb, and a thunder force drilled into his body, making him feel extremely uncomfortable, as if he was poisoned. His whole body was bitten by millions of ants, and even his magic core trembled. Without waiting for the bull demon to catch his breath, a figure jumped up in his eyes. Patter! Li Daochong landed on the bull demon's chest. Immediately, his fists bombarded the bull demon's chest like raindrops. Thump, 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 the sound of the drums shook the sky, constantly invading everyone's eardrums. Puff, puff, even the strong bull demon began to vomit blood. The bull demon looked up, and when he saw the fiendish python floating there, he seemed to think of something, and reached out his hand to ask for help. Demon, fiendish python, sir, save me. The fiendish python did not seem to hear him, the fire in his eyes did not even move, and looked at the bull demon expressionlessly as if he was looking at a dead man. Demon, fiendish python, you. While the bull demon was speaking, Li Daochong continued to bombard him. He wanted to know if he could kill the nether demon with just a pair of fists. Spirit Qi and Yang Thunder Force kept invading the bull demon's body. If it was only Spirit Qi, the bull demon could use his own demonic Qi to resist, but against the Yang Thunder Force, he was helpless. Every time the Yang Thunder Force flowed through his body, the bull demon felt as if he was being burned by fire. Li Daochong's attack frequency increased, and the bull demon became his test subject. The huge body began to distort, and his chest caved in, and black blood dyed the ground black. Boom! Finally, after Li Daochong's punch, the bull demon's body completely exploded. Li Daochong jumped up and reached out his hand. Thump! A magic core fell into his hand. Li Daochong examined the demonic core for a moment, but he didn't think too much about it. He exerted some force in his hand and crushed the demonic core. A dark green fog that others could not see entered Li Daochong's body, and quickly disappeared. Beep! 1 bull demon killed, soul power gained, the host has leveled up to level 30. Li Daochong broke through the middle stage of soul formation, and reached the late stage of soul formation. For Li Daochong, cultivation was like killing monsters to level up. As long as there were enough monsters to kill, Li Daochong could continuously level up until he reached the maximum level. This was not much different from the online games Li Daochong played in his previous life. The only difference was that Li Daochong only had 1 life. If he died, the game would end. This was the fundamental reason why Li Daochong could not be unscrupulous, otherwise, he would have run to the Hades to kill monsters. During the trip to the Black Prison, Li Daochong did not expect that he would level up so many times, and his cultivation would improve by leaps and bounds. Even he himself felt that it was unimaginable. In the beginning, Li Daochong was a little worried that his body would not be able to take it, because Li Daochong had a few adverse reactions before, and almost died twice. However, this time, there was no discomfort, as if the spirit essence of the cherry blossom gauze had greatly increased Li Daochong's body capacity. In addition, the special environment of the black prison also helped a lot. If Li Daochong was in the spirit realm, just the lightning tribulation alone would be enough to make him suffer. Because of the chaotic power of law here, Li Daochong did not encounter a single lightning tribulation. Li Daochong was a little worried that he would encounter a great lightning tribulation after leaving the black prison. Li Daochong believed that there was no cultivator in the black prison who could increase his cultivation so much in such a short time. Exalted Kuei Xing, is there something wrong with my spiritual sense? Elder Ghost asked suspiciously. Elder Ghost, why do you say that? Exalted Kuei Xing asked. Why is this person's aura only at the mid-soul formation stage? Elder Ghost was confused. Elder Ghost, I sense the same thing as you, Forefather Chi Kuei replied from the side. Elder Ghost's old eyes widened and he was shocked. A mid-soul formation stage cultivator can kill the nether demon. How is this possible? Forefather Chi Sunflower and Exalted Patriarch Kuei Xing were dumbfounded. Who should they ask? When the bull demon was killed, the cultivators of the black prison were completely stunned. Those who were doubting, mocking, and worried that they would be implicated became softer and softer. At this moment, no one said anything sad. Some pessimists also felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps they would not die today. However, just as the flame of hope was ignited in everyone's heart, the death chi in the sealed space suddenly rose again. Almost at the same time when Li Daochong killed the bull demon, the black python in the fiendish python's hand turned into a black lightning bolt and shot toward Li Daochong. Chapter 6:22. The fiendish python thought that the giant man could play a role, but it was still a one-sided battle without any suspense. Compared with Kuanqing and Qi Kuang, the giant man only had a little room to fight back. The fiendish python was shocked. He came to the black prison under the order of His Highness to find Wu Ho and cherry blossom gauze. Invading the black prison was just an extra, and killing Ancestor Tianfeng was also a matter of convenience. Before coming to the black prison, the fiendish python had already figured out this chaotic star area. In fact, Hades knew more about this place than the three empires of cultivation. But the fiendish python searched all the information about this human cultivator, but there was no information about him. This person seemed to appear out of thin air. There were so many people in the human territory that Hades could not have the information of every cultivator. It was not a strange thing for a nameless person to appear. But this person was so powerful, but Hades did not have any information about him, which was a bit strange. Hades and the four netherworld countries would hardly pay attention to cultivators below the Huashan realm. Once they passed the Huashan realm, they would more or less be noticed by the four netherworld countries. And those young cultivators who had extraordinary achievements at a young age were the focus of Hades. If their talent was too great, Hades would try his best to assassinate them. Every now and then, some of the outstanding human cultivators would die an unnatural death. The three empires of cultivation were increasing the protection of those talented young people. It was getting more and more difficult for Hades to assassinate them. It might not be easy to get rid of them, but it was not difficult to get the relevant information about these outstanding people. The fiendish python had already detected the bone age of Li Daochong. What shocked him was that this person's bone age was not more than 21 years old. This was so abnormal that it was a little outrageous. The fiendish python had seen too many human cultivators in the past 1,000 years, but he had never seen such an abnormal one. At the age of 21, he could easily kill the high-level netherworld devil, and his cultivation had not reached the voiding realm. How incredible was this! The strategy of the fiendish python to kill with a borrowed knife successfully completed the removal of the annoying giant man, but the process was not quite the same as he thought. At this moment, Demon General Hades was not happy at all. The moment the fiendish python released the black python, he also moved. A black fog circled in his hand. Bang! Bang! After a few crisp sounds, a long sword shaped like a python appeared in his hand. The serene python sword was a low-grade devil treasure with Hades, which was equivalent to a low-grade immortal treasure. The blade of the sword was more than 2 meters long and 1 foot wide. The blade of the sword was like a giant python that was slithering around. The patterns on the blade were hideous and terrifying, like a ghost that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It emitted a threatening aura of death. In the instant the black python shot out, it had already grown to a size of 30 meters. It opened its huge mouth and bit towards Li Daochong. This mouthful was enough to swallow a person whole. Crackle! Li Daochong's body flashed with electric light, and the blue-golden brilliance in his eyes lit up the entire enclosed space. Boom! Heavenly thunder spell, Eye of Thunder punishment. 2 bolts of yang thunder struck out horizontally, and the void seemed to be split into 2 halves. Li Daochong did not hold back. This blow was infused with the greatest thunder power he could exert. Li Daochong knew very well that no matter how many people he killed, it would not be of much use. There was only one real opponent. It was the devil of Hades who, for some reason, remained indifferent when Li Daochong killed the demon sect and the giant man. Li Daochong could not see through the black-robed man at all. The devil chi on his body did not seem to be strong. But there was a chilling sense of emptiness, as if looking into a bottomless abyss. The abyss was indifferent, but the more you looked, the more your heart trembled. The more you looked, the more you felt that something was wrong. This person's level in Hades must be above the ordinary nether demons. Therefore, Li Daochong used the Eye of Thunder punishment. Boom! The 2 bolts of lightning struck the black python, and the giant devil of Hades let out a roar. That roar was so terrifying that it should not exist in the mortal world. It was like the roar of a sinful soul in the abyss of hell that had been burned by the nether fire for thousands of years. Its huge body twisted back and forth in the void, and with a boom it landed on the ground. A deep pit was formed on the ground, and the black python rolled and twisted violently in the pit. It was in great pain. Yang Thunder's damage to nether creatures was often fatal. With just a single blow, the devil of Hades, which had just swept through the entire battlefield, lost its ability to fight. At this moment, the doubts in the hearts of the cultivators in the distance disappeared without a trace. Exalted Patriarch Kuei Xing, Elder Ghost, and Patriarch Chi Kuei were originally looking at Li Daochong with a condescending attitude. After all, they had lived for so long, and they were also veteran void refinement cultivators. It was inevitable that they would look down on the younger generation. However, when Li Daochong shot out the Eye of Thunder punishment, the 3 of them felt their hearts tremble, and they almost lost their balance. The power of Yang Thunder was also effective on devil cultivators and ghost cultivators. After Li Daochong released the Eye of Thunder punishment, the spiritual qi in his body was consumed. Fortunately, his spiritual qi storage was many times higher than before. Li Daochong could still bear to use the Eye of Thunder punishment once. When the black python was shot down, the fiendish python had already appeared beside Li Daochong. With the force of death, the fiendish python sword in its hand hacked at Li Daochong fiercely. Ha! The fiendish python even roared. Li Daochong had already prepared for it, and the Tsang ink immediately flew over. Clang! The fiendish treasure collided with the immortal treasure. Brilliance radiated in all directions and shock waves rose. A powerful tornado spiraled in the enclosed space, and the shape of the ground changed a little bit. If the devil chi and spiritual chi hadn't destroyed each other by more than half, the aftermath of the collision between Li Daochong and the fiendish python would have been enough to destroy everything here. The fiendish python retreated a few meters, while Li Daochong flew back dozens of meters. The difference in strength was obvious. Li Daochong's wrist was slightly numb, and his dark eyes showed some surprise. The devil general really belonged to another level. The giant belonged to the devil cultivator, and could also be called a devil soldier. It belonged to the lowest level among the devils of the Hades. The devil general was one realm higher than the devil soldier. Li Daochong clenched the tsang ink in his hand, exhaled slightly, and shot out with a swoosh. The blade light rose from the ground. The sixth level of the 9 cracks saber technique, the sun-breaking cut. A round of super-large blade light connected the top of the Hades formation and the bottom of the ground, chopped at the fiendish python with overwhelming force. Amazing skill. Oh my God, this is not a blade light, it's simply a blazing sun. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. What kind of cultivation method is so terrible? Someone exclaimed. Cultivation method? Friend, this is no longer a cultivation method. This is a supernatural power that can destroy heaven and earth. Someone next to him corrected. The fire in the fiendish python's eyes suddenly rose. The fiendish python's sword in his hand brought out a round of black fog and slashed out. Fiendish python swallows the sky. In the black fog, a fiendish python shadow, which was several kilometers in size, burst out violently. Boom! The fiendish python shadow and Tsang Ink's blade light collided, and suddenly burst out like a tsunami. With a buzzing sound, it instantly swept through the entire enclosed space. The Hades formation and the supernatural power swallowed and melted each other, and finally disappeared. Almost at the same time, Li Daochong turned into lightning and shot out, while the fiendish python turned into a cloud of black fog and disappeared. Then, the whole space disappeared, and only the deafening sound of collision could be heard. Bang, 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 crack, every loud noise was accompanied by a powerful explosion. The whole enclosed space was shaking, as if it would collapse at any time. Clang, clang, above the formation wall, dazzling brilliance constantly burst out. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 623. The battle that could not be seen by the naked eye lasted for half an hour. The level of the battle between the fiendish python and Li Daochong was far above that of all the practitioners present. No one could see their movements with the naked eye, not even the perception of spiritual thoughts. Every time they heard the sound, it had already become a thing of the past. Finally, with a roar, the fiendish python and Li Daochong showed their real bodies. Both of them were wounded. The black scales on the fiendish python fell off in several places, and black blood kept flowing out. Li Daochong was not much better. His blue martial suit was in tatters, and there were more than 10 bloodstains on his body. There was also a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The fire in the fiendish python's eyes burned fiercely. He stared at Li Daochong gloomily, feeling shocked and angry. This nonentity could hurt him. The fiendish python was not reconciled. If his devil body avatar had not been destroyed, how could this guy be his opponent? The fiendish python's devil chi rose again. The serene python's sword suddenly flew out of his hand and went straight to the dying black python in the pit. Whoosh! The serene python's sword sank into the black python's body. Then the black python's body trembled violently, as if it had been stimulated. The scorch marks on the black python's body disappeared quickly, and its body grew bigger. Then a layer of python skin fell off, and its body grew 3 times bigger. It stopped when it reached 300 feet, and then it became a long dragon. The black python's triangular head, which was the size of a water tank, grew a lot, and 2 long horns protruded from its head. Bang! The black python spat out a black fire in the air, and it went straight to Li Daochong. Heavenly thunder spell, eye of thunder punishment. Li Daochong's eyes flashed blue and gold again, and two thunderbolts came out. The nether fire and the yang thunder collided and cancelled each other out. However, the yang thunder still had the upper hand, and part of it went through the nether fire and hit the mutated black python. But this time, the black python trembled slightly, and was only numbed for a moment. Hiss! The black python spat out its tongue and glared at Li Daochong with endless anger in its gloomy eyes. The Thunder Prison's punishment just now had made it suffer unspeakably. It had to swallow this person alive to vent the hatred in its heart. The black python, which was reborn, turned into a cloud of black mist and disappeared. When it appeared again, it was already floating beside the fiendish python. Human cultivator, you should be proud of yourself for being able to force me to this point. Compared to you, old ancestor Tianfeng is just a weakling. Your existence has already threatened the plan of the nether realm to descend upon the human realm in the future. Therefore, you must die. Killing you will be the first merit. The fiendish python opened his arms as he spoke. The black python floating beside him slowly coiled around him. Body. The black python kept wriggling, and the scales on its body suddenly opened up, then began to shrink. The fiendish python's body grew bigger and bigger. Its 30-meter-long body was like a demon god descending to the human world. The fiendish python and the black python were completely integrated. The previous wounds on its body disappeared completely. The black scales on its body emitted a cold black light. Li Daochong touched the corner of his mouth and wiped away the blood. His calm eyes were faintly moved. The fiendish python, who turned into a demon, emitted a pressure that even Li Daochong felt a little uneasy. It seemed that he could not defeat it. Li Daochong's eyes twitched slightly. He held the Tsang ink tightly. He still had two trump cards, two spiritual talismans and the great void swordsmanship, a LV-16 ice talisman and a LV-17 fire talisman. Whether these two spiritual talismans could work was still a question mark. In this enclosed space, spiritual talismans above LV-15 were enough to destroy everything, which was equivalent to an atomic bomb. Li Daochong had been saving the great void swordsmanship to save his life. This was his biggest trump card. Sorry to keep you waiting. The fiendish python looked down at Li Daochong. Its voice was like muffled thunder. Watching this scene from afar, the black prison cultivators forgot to breathe for a moment. The pressure of the demon chi made them just want to escape. In the face of such a powerful existence, Li Daochong did not feel fear. Instead, he felt an uncontrollable excitement. At this moment, Li Daochong received a signal in his sea of consciousness. The Shabi woke up. Little thing, you're finally awake. Li Daochong murmured to himself. After the 13th Specter, the Shabi fell into a deep sleep again. This time, it slept even deeper than the last time. It was as if it was dead. Since Li Daochong adopted the Shabi, he had read a lot of ancient books. He wanted to know the characteristics of this ancient mythical beast. Unfortunately, there were very few records. However, from the fragmentary descriptions, he knew that every time the Shabi evolved, it would be accompanied by a deep sleep. It was like a caterpillar that evolved into a butterfly. Squeak, squeak. Accompanied by two small squeaks, a small monkey with a pair of cute big eyes crawled out of Li Daochong's arms. It sat on his shoulder and looked curiously at the fiendish python that had transformed into a demon god. If you looked closely, you would find that those cute big eyes were shining with greed and hunger. The Shabi's evolution speed was related to the strength of the ghosts it devoured. Every time it ate, it grew. In this aspect, he was similar to Li Daochong's. Little thing, you can't eat it. Just stay in the Na-Yu space. Li Daochong patted the Shabi's little head. Squeak, squeak. The Shabi squeaked twice in Li Daochong's ear. It was a little reluctant. In the end, it crawled into Li Daocheng's arms and entered the mini Na Yu space that was specially prepared for it. Yingsha, is the transmission array ready? Li Daocheng stared at the 10-foot demon body and transmitted his voice. Young master, it's almost done. Cherry Blossom Gauze transmitted her voice with a little anxiety. Okay, take Yi Feiyue and the others away immediately. Don't worry about me. Li Daocheng immediately said. Young master, this is an order. In the distance near the formation wall, Cherry Blossom Gauze's pale little face showed a touch of embarrassment. She bit her lower lip and looked worriedly at Li Daocheng, who was suspended above the void. There was a complicated look in her beautiful eyes. There was worry for Li Daocheng, and also fear for her own fate. Because if something happened to Li Daocheng, Cherry Blossom Gauze would not be able to live, but she could do nothing. Just as they were transmitting their voices, the fiendish python's huge body moved and punched Li Daocheng. The huge body would definitely affect the speed, but it did not seem to work on the fiendish python. Its speed was still ridiculously fast, but Li Daocheng was prepared and dodged in an instant. However, even if Li Daocheng dodged the punch, the powerful space vortex brought by the fist wind still hit Li Daocheng. Li Daocheng was blown away like a cannonball and fell to the ground like a meteor. Boom! The ground burst open, bursting out hundreds of meters of dust, and a huge pit was created. Li Daocheng didn't stop at all. He immediately jumped out of the pit, and the Tsang Mo in his hand flew out. The shadow of Tsang ink was hundreds of feet long, like a heavenly knife falling from the ninth heaven, chopping at the fiendish python. Insignificant skill. The fiendish python disdainfully waved its hand. Bang! The hundreds of feet long shadow was easily scattered by the fiendish python. Li Daocheng's eyes shrank. Before he could react, the giant hand, which was bigger than him, had already pressed down on him like a curtain. Li Daocheng reacted instantly. He kicked the giant hand and flew backward with the help of the rebound, narrowly dodging the claw. He dodged it, but just like before, the huge space vortex brought by the giant hand of the fiendish python was still powerful. Li Daocheng was blown away again. But this time Li Daocheng was prepared, and a shadow of primordial spirit flashed behind him. It stopped when Li Daocheng was about to hit the formation wall. The fiendish python appeared in front of Li Daocheng again in an instant, opening its mouth and spewing out black flames. Li Daocheng's eyes flashed, and the spiritual qi in his body suddenly burst out. He directly opened the 1,000-sound escape and disappeared, as if he had teleported. Although the 1,000-sound escape was powerful, Li Daocheng could not maintain such a speed all the time. Because this magical power consumed a lot of energy. Although Li Daocheng's cultivation had increased a lot, with the increase of cultivation, the speed of the 1,000-sound escape would also increase, and the consumption would also increase greatly. No matter how much Li Daocheng's strength improved, as long as he did not reach the maximum speed of the 1,000-sound escape, the time he could maintain the maximum speed would not change much. He could maintain the maximum speed for about 20 minutes. Li Daocheng appeared behind the fiendish python. With a shake of his hand, a spiritual talisman whizzed out. Crack! Crack! The spiritual talisman hit the fiendish python and instantly made a sound of freezing. The power of ice quickly fermented, and the fiendish python was frozen in an instant. Li Daocheng did not relax at all because he hit the fiendish python and quickly retreated several kilometers. Almost at the same time, the ice that sealed the fiendish python cracked. Crack! Crack! Of course, this level of ice could not do anything to the fiendish python of the middle demon general level. Li Daocheng did not hesitate, and shot out another ray of light from his hand. The level 17 fire talisman turned into a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 10 meters, and blasted toward the fiendish python. The temperature in the enclosed space was extremely high, and all the cultivators complained. If it were not for the protection of the barrier, a considerable number of them would have been burned by the residual heat. Ghost Elder, exalted Master Kuei Xing and Ancestor Qi Kuei could not sit still any longer, and finally used their own abilities to support several defensive barriers to protect all the cultivators. Boom! With a deafening sound, a mushroom cloud rose. The shock wave suddenly spread to every corner of the enclosed space. The enclosed space that had been destroyed several times was attacked by the fire wave again, and the ground was burned red. The edge of the deep pit where Ancestor Tianfeng was lying was completely melted and deformed. The old man lying in the center of the pit was now surrounded by a faint white light barrier. If it were not for this, the body of this immobile fusion stage old demon would have been burned to ashes. "Is it dead?" Someone who was watching from afar asked. No one answered, because the devil Qi did not show any signs of weakening. When the fire wave subsided and the dust dissipated, the 30-meter-tall demon body was still standing there. There was not even a burn mark on the fiendish python's body, but white smoke was rising from its back. If it were a level 20 talisman, I would be somewhat afraid. But it's just a level 17 talisman. Are you tickling me? The fiendish python looked at Li Daochong as if nothing had happened and said in a deep voice. Li Daochong looked regretful. He thought that it would have some effect. As Cherry Blossom Gauze said, although the Nether Demon and the Nether Ghost were born from the same root, there was a world of difference between them. The former was the king of the Hades, while the latter was just a pack of evil dogs of the Hades. Before the fiendish python's voice died away, its 30-meter-tall demon body had already disappeared. With a flash, it appeared in front of Li Daochong, who was several kilometers away. It still punched out. The biggest advantage of the Nether Demon was their incomparably powerful demon body, so they did not rely too much on magic treasures like human cultivators. Their bodies were their most powerful weapons. Chapter 624. Li Daochong's body flashed with electric light, and the electric current flowed through him, round after round. The electric current wrapped Li Daochong, forming a thunder barrier. Li Daochong had always been confident in his spiritual body, but after fighting with the fiendish python, he realized that his spiritual body was not tough enough. It wasn't difficult for Li Daochong to dodge the 100-foot-tall Fiend Celestial's gigantic fist, but even if he did, the spatial distortions and demonic aura from the Fiend Celestial's Fiend Celestial fist could still send him flying. Li Daochong had to force out the thunder force to protect himself, otherwise, his body would not be able to bear it. The demon fist roared like a meteorite, but Li Daochong dodged it quickly. This time, the twisting force brought by the fist wind did not send Li Daochong flying, and it was dissolved by the thunder force. However, the recoil Li Daochong received was still very strong. The demon body kept attacking, and Li Daochong had no room to fight back, except for the power to dodge. If he was not careful, he would be hit, and the damage caused by the fist wind was extremely frightening. If he was hit head-on, Li Daochong would be hurt no matter how strong he was. Li Daochong's only trump card was the Great Void Swordsmanship, but he could not use it now. Li Daochong was waiting for Cherry Blossom Gauze to set up the transmission formation. Time passed little by little, and the demon body tirelessly punched again and again. Every punch seemed to break the space, and Li Daochong's spiritual qi was rapidly consumed. Below, Cherry Blossom Gauze finally set up the transmission formation. She glanced at Li Daochong, who was fighting with the demon body in the distance, and hesitated. Finally, she gritted her teeth and sent a telepathic message to Goddess Hong Yang. Goddess Hong Yang, who was hiding in the ancient bell, did not hesitate. She immediately withdrew the ancient bell and led the girls to the Cherry Blossom Gauze. "Sister Ingsha, I'm not leaving. You guys can leave now," Silver Bottle immediately said when she saw that Cherry Blossom Gauze was about to lead everyone away. "Yin Ping, this is young master's order. Are you not going to listen to young master's orders?" Cherry Blossom Gauze immediately brought up Li Daochong. After a few months of interaction, she knew that Silver Bottle was a stubborn girl. Other than Li Daochong, she would never listen to anyone else. Sure enough, as soon as Cherry Blossom Gauze finished speaking, Silver Bottle's face darkened, and she bit her lower lip hard. "All right, there's no time to explain. If we don't leave now, we won't be able to. Young Master said that he'll be here soon. If we stay here, young Master won't be able to do anything." Cherry Blossom Gauze pulled a silver bottle. The little girl reluctantly walked into the Netherworld formation. The Netherworld teleportation formation Cherry Blossom Gauze had set up this time was much more advanced than the one set up by 13 Specter. It could accommodate up to 30 people at the same time. Cherry Blossom Gauze glanced at Li Daochong, who was dodging in the distance. She narrowed her eyes and silently recited an incantation. The Netherworld teleportation formation was activated. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The figures of the women standing in the formation gradually became blurry. When the women's figures became blurry, many cultivators nearby immediately noticed this strange phenomenon. "A teleportation formation?" someone exclaimed. "Yes, it's a teleportation formation," someone else said. Almost at the same time, a few ghost cultivators with faster reactions turned into clouds of black mist and surged toward the area where the women had disappeared. The others quickly reacted as well. A teleportation formation meant that they could escape. Instantly, a commotion broke out among the cultivators. The ghost cultivators further away didn't know what was going on, but when they saw the cultivators in front of them flying into the sky, they followed closely behind. For a time, the entire area was in chaos. The cultivators scrambled to be the first. Some cultivators, seeing that they couldn't catch up, directly attacked the cultivators in front of them. Naturally, no one was able to stop the few ghost cultivators at the front of the group who were one step ahead of them. When the ghost cultivators rushed into the teleportation formation, the women's figures hadn't completely disappeared. However, when they pounced on empty air and didn't touch anything. He watched helplessly as the women's bodies, which had been real just a moment ago, disappeared completely. The cultivators behind them couldn't stop in time and crashed into one another. The cultivators at the front were crushed under them. Immediately after, the space in the area distorted, and the bodies of the cultivators who fell in the area began to blur. About 100 cultivators were affected. The moment before these cultivators disappeared, indescribable joy appeared on their faces. In just a few seconds, this group of cultivators was torn to shreds by the spatial turbulence. The women naturally didn't know what was happening in the sealed space. They were sent out step by the teleportation formation. A blood-red brilliance flashed in front of the women's eyes. After a while, their eyes lit up. Thick clouds floated in the gray sky, and the surroundings were still as oppressive as ever. However, the women heaved a sigh of relief. They were back. They were back in the Black Prison. The teleportation location was the location of the Black Prison Imperial Palace. However, this place was now barren and nothing was left. The ground within several kilometers seemed to have been pried open and disappeared. "Sister Ingsha, young master will be fine, right?" Yinping asked in a daze. Cherry Blossom Gauze looked at the dazed little girl and forced a smile. "Young master is so powerful. He will definitely be fine." "Yes, young master is so powerful. He will definitely be fine." Yinping firmly nodded her little head in response. However, the melancholy in her eyes couldn't be concealed. Goddess Hong Yang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiran felt that everything was unreal after surviving the disaster. Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran had never experienced such a mysterious teleportation before, so they couldn't react for a while. When they came back to their senses, the first thing they thought of was Li Daochong's safety. "Big brother Li, what do we do?" Huang Jiran blurted out. Yi Feiyue didn't say anything, but there was an unconcealable look of worry on her pretty face. Qian Yueling, Mu Jiaojiao, and Murongju's state of mind were naturally very different compared to Yinping and the other girls. They felt as if they had been reborn. They didn't expect to be able to escape the sealed space isolated by the nether array. A few minutes ago, they thought that they wouldn't live for long. However, a few minutes later, they miraculously escaped from the sealed space and returned to the black prison. Qian Yueling and the other two girls, except for Murongju, were all heavily injured. They had barely escaped with their lives. It would be a tragedy if they were killed by a rogue cultivator after returning to their own territory. At this time, most of the forces in the black prison were trapped in the sealed space. According to the time, at least half a day had passed. After such a long time, the turmoil that happened here had probably spread throughout the black prison. The demonic cultivators and ghostly cultivators in the black prison were all eager to see the world in chaos. At this time, the entire star field was probably surging with undercurrents. It was estimated that the ambitious forces had already begun to plot how to replace the three heads of the black prison. Qian Yueling and the other two girls exchanged a few words with Hongyang and the other girls and then left in a hurry. At this moment, in the sealed space, the battle between the 30-meter-tall demonic body and Li Daochong was getting more and more intense. The fiendish python couldn't hit Li Daochong. Every time it missed its target, its anger would soar. On the surface, Li Daochong didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. Every time he dodged, it didn't take much effort. It seemed that he dodged it easily. In fact, Li Daochong's consumption was great. The spiritual qi in his body was weakening at an alarming rate. It was very strenuous and unrewarding to support the thunder and lightning shield to resist the demonic qi astral wind on the 30-meter-tall demonic body's fist. After all, Li Daochong's cultivation was not enough. He couldn't deal with the devil general nether demon at ease. However, Li Daochong was not without the power to fight back. He was just waiting for the girls to escape safely. The power of the great void swordsmanship was too great. This time, Li Daochong's cultivation had leaped to the late stage of Huashan realm. He had met the minimum standard to exert the true meaning of the great void swordsmanship. Li Daochong couldn't predict what would happen after he exerted it. Would it split the entire sealed space in half or directly destroy the space? With the improvement of Li Daochong's cultivation, his understanding of the great void swordsmanship became deeper and deeper. The great void was the great way. The great void swordsmanship was never a swordsmanship, but an extremely mysterious divine sense. Tao gave birth to one, one gave birth to two gave birth to three, and three gave birth to all things. Li Daochong had just comprehended the true meaning of these not long ago. The great void was the origin. It looked very mysterious. Simply speaking, it was a very awesome divine sense. It could split the sky and the earth, and it could shatter the universe. If it weren't for the hot-blooded upgrader, Li Daochong knew that even if he had a lifespan of 10,000 years, he might not be able to understand the great void swordsmanship even if he spent all his time on it. In fact, even now, Li Daochong didn't fully understand what the great void swordsmanship was. However, this didn't stop Li Daochong from learning the great void swordsmanship. It was like a toddler learning to walk. He learned it unknowingly. As for the principles, the toddler naturally didn't know. Li Daochong had been covering Yinping with a trace of his divine sense, so he could clearly sense every move of the few girls. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.